Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 6th meeting of the Ann Arbor City Council. If you're able, please rise and join us for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would our clerk please call the roll of council?
Councilmember Dish?
Present.
Councilmember Harrison?
Present.
Councilmember Song?
Here.
Councilmember Watson?
Present.
Councilmember Radina?
Here.
Councilmember Ghazi Edwin?
Here.
Mayor Taylor?
Here.
Councilmember Iyer?
Here.
Councilmember Ackman?
Here.
Councilmember Briggs?
Here.
Councilmember Cornell?
Here.
We have a quorum.
May I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda? Moved by Councilmember Radina, second by Councilmember Dish. Discussion of the agenda. All in favor? Opposed? The agenda is approved. Do we have communications today from our city administrator?
No, Mayor.
We now have a report from the Independent Community Police Oversight Commission. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Stephanie Carter. I'm the Vice Chair of IKPOC. I'm here in place of our Chair, Francis Tedora Hargrave, who is out of town. And I thank you for giving us the opportunity to give you an update, although we don't have a lot to update you about. We have had to cancel a meeting. We've had power outages. We had a meeting scheduled with the police, and that had to be canceled because of power issues. But we are working. We plan to have, by the 16th of March, the meeting that we're going to have with the department has been rescheduled, so we expect to have that coming. We also understand the command union will be in negotiations for their contract very soon, and we look forward to having some input with that. Over the last couple of months, we continue to make progress with our subcommittees. We did have a retreat a couple of weeks ago, and we have a new committee, one of them being policy committee. We plan to review all of the police policies, and if we have input or suggestions, we will do that. We're also developing our own policies as a commission. As you know, we're a very young commission still. In addition to that, we are hoping to have a retreat soon, not just with ourselves, but with the police department as well. We're trying still to build trust, to increase transparency, and hopefully to move to a place where we have a community-based police department. That's our goal. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. We now come to a set of public comments. Public comments are opportunities for members of the public to speak to council and the community about matters of municipal interest. To speak at public comment, one needs to have signed up in advance by contacting our city clerk. Each speaker has 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to the time. If you're here, of course, you may observe the time clock. If you are online, our clerk will notify you when 30 seconds are remaining and when your time has expired. In all cases, when your time has expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. We do have over 15 public speakers. If we are able to take care of all of our public speakers within 45 minutes, then we will, our first 15 public speakers within 45 minutes, then we'll roll on to hear our 16th within that 45-minute time frame. If, however, the first 15 public speakers extend beyond 45 minutes, then we have public speaking overflow on the back end. Our first speaker today is Rachel Pooley.
Hi, this is my first time addressing the council, even though I'm an Ann Arbor native. And I'm here because energy is really important to me, and I am really interested in the resolution that's being proposed. I'm really happy to see the enthusiasm, and I feel like as a city, we're moving in the right direction. But I have a concern about, well, I'd like to say first, I really appreciate being able to talk with Dharma Ackman and Jen Iyer, my reps, after the storm about many of the issues that we see in the resolution. But I do have a concern about DTE being invited to the table, that clause being invited to the Energy Commission. And I would hope that somebody could explain to me why that is and what the intent of that is. I personally don't see that they deserve to have a seat at the table. What I would like to point out is also, I'll get around to this, but in terms of the resolution, I think it's great to try to work with the state, but we also have an opportunity as a city to create our own municipal utility and bypass dealing with the state. And I'd like to point out the state has not been effective in regulating DTE. If you look at the MPSC, they said themselves in an October 25th press release, 2022, over the past decades, the MPSC has issued a series of directives in response to widespread outages after storms. While there are important efforts underway, the reality is that we still haven't seen improvements in reliability and safety that Michigan customers deserve. That's our own commission saying that. When we talk about the legislature, a report from the Energy and Policy Institute reports that 138 out of 148 state senators accept money from DTE. Governor Whitmer accepts more money than any other state elected official. We can bypass the state and work at a city level, and we have the opportunity to do that. We have the legal right to do that. So I think that's something I'd really like to see us do. The feasibility study will show us what options we have. But I would like the clause about DTE at the table to be removed. I don't think they have acted in good faith with our state and with our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lauren Sargent.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Lauren Sargent. I live on Ember Way in Ann Arbor, as I have lived here for the past 40 years. As we've all seen way too clearly the last 2 weeks, DTE has failed us. Thank you for taking a first step towards demanding accountability for these unacceptable electric outages. This was completely predictable and largely preventable. DTE can be relied upon to be unreliable, and this is nothing new. Over 40 years ago, then Detroit Edison made a business decision to focus on shareholder value instead of reliability and customer service, and it shows. One summer in the late 1980s, Detroit lost power. My healthy 93-year-old Grandma Sargent became hyperthermic in the heat and humidity of August without air conditioning. She was taken to Sinai Hospital, where she lapsed into a coma and never regained consciousness. In 2006, we experienced one of our frequent power outages in my neighborhood. My son's buddy's little sister had developed a progressive muscular dystrophy, which left her dependent on breathing equipment at night. I asked the DTE supervisor cruising through our neighborhood, "Can you get this family some help? Their little girl can't breathe at night without power." The reply, "If she can't breathe, she should go to a hospital." That family moved away. Last week, I found another DTE supervisor driving through a nearby neighborhood and asked what was causing our 4+ day power outage. He said, "It is the trees. Tell your neighbors to trim their trees." My neighborhood has underground utilities. Our trees are not guilty. The callous disregard for the health and safety of the customers cannot be accepted one more day. It is literally a matter of life and death, particularly in winter and summer when babies under 6 and the elderly cannot regulate their body temperature at a safe level. But any time of year for people who rely on electricity for medical equipment and safe storage of life-sustaining medicine. I urge you, the council, to join with Washtenaw County and the city of Pontiac to proclaim that this pattern ends here. In 2013, the city of Lansing experienced a catastrophic ice storm with prolonged outages. The citizens called on their municipal utility that is accountable to them, the citizens, to ensure that this would never happen again. Here is the report outlining all the changes they made, and no, it is not just the trees. They have not had a major power outage since. These last two storms resulted in fewer than 100 of 100,000 customers out of power briefly. Accountability matters. Either we demand better or we pull the plug on DTE and take the power into our own hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kathleen Murphy.
Kathleen Murphy, phone number 245, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Murphy. I live at 315 Linda Vista Street, 48103 in Ward 5. I work with Ann Arbor for Public Power, which is seeking to replace DTE with Ann Arbor's own public electric utility. I'd like to strongly commend Council members Gazi Edwin, Song, and Harrison for the resolution they put forward. Quote, requesting the city administration to engage with the Michigan legislature and Michigan Public Service Commission to advance energy equity and resilience, unquote. It spells out the many ways in which we need to hold DTE accountable for its lack of reliability during the recent ice storm and during the snowstorm that followed. Hundreds of residents in Ann Arbor and in southeast Michigan lost power during both storms, some for as many as 8 days, a few even longer. We should all be outraged at DTE's lack of preparation for these ever more extreme weather conditions. I propose one small amendment to the resolution, and that is to remove the clause stating that DTE should, quote, attend regularly scheduled Energy Commission meetings to provide updates on what DTE is doing to improve the resilience of its infrastructure with a focus on energy justice and decarbonization, end quote. The Energy Commission has the power to call on DTE to speak at its meetings and to get updates at any time. To allow DTE to be always present at Energy Commission meetings gives DTE the opportunity to push forward its PR campaign to greenwash what it's doing and not doing. So I suggest amending the resolution to remove this one clause. But again, I thank Council members Gazi Edwin, Song, and Harrison for putting this resolution forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Greg Woodring.
Caller with the phone number ending in 228, Greg Woodring, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Greg Woodring, and I am the president of Ann Arbor for Public Power. I'm among the unlucky few who had power out for about 8 days, or for over 8 days. I had my power restored on the 9th day of outage, and just 5 hours later, my power failed once again due to the snowstorm. I'm calling in because I would like to commend Councilmember Gazi Edwin, Song, and Harrison as well for their resolution calling on greater accountability for DTE within the Michigan Public Service Commission, the legislature, and at the city level. I think that it's incredibly important that we all use this tragedy, this mass power outage, to really demand change for something that has been going on for far too long. DTE has made the strategic decision to invest in our politics rather than their infrastructure. They're the fourth dirtiest utility. They're one of the most expensive utilities. And as we all just saw, they're one of the most unreliable, with up to 9-day outages followed by even longer outages that have not been fully resolved. Meanwhile, public power utilities like Lansing, Chelsea, Wyandotte all had very short-lived outages or none at all. The difference is clear between public power and private utilities, and I think that other people across the state are looking to Ann Arbor and seeing that we have taken the steps forward to start to break free and are trying to follow in our example. It's incredibly important that we continue to move along this process to give hope to others in the state that we no longer will have to live under the cruel and callous regime of DTE. So I would like to thank the commission, the council members, apologies, for introducing this resolution. However, I would, as other speakers have stated, recommend that it be amended to remove the clause, adding a permanent speaking position to the Energy Commission meetings for DTE. DTE has already proven that they are willing to lie about their investments in their infrastructure, bragging just a day after the outage to their shareholders about how they saved $100 million by deferring tree trimming and plan to continue deferring maintenance to keep their budget lean, all at the same time while bragging about reliability upgrades to the press. We simply can't allow them to keep spreading this type of misinformation within our city government. We need to remove their lobbying capabilities, and we need to break free from them so that we can start to build a resilient and sustainable energy grid that will carry us through the climate crisis. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Derek Miller.
Derek Miller, phone number ending in 159. Sorry, Derek Miller, phone number ending in 084.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everybody. Derek Miller, resident of Ann Arbor on Pauline Boulevard, and also speaking on behalf of Community Action Network. There has been a widespread disruption to services for under-resourced families, with pockets of outages still persisting. In fact, just 2 days ago, a community resident had reached out on behalf of their 89-year-old neighbor still without power. By reaching out to our contacts at DTE, we were fortunately able to get a team out there to prioritize the repair. Although this response was to the benefit of this elderly resident, it is symptomatic of a broken system requiring clout for resolution. Loss of food security resources, as well as the ability to distribute, was seriously compromised, and we are the largest distributor in partnership with food gatherers in Washtenaw County. Scrambling to meet emerging needs in light of uncertainty of when power would return, this led to emergency actions from dozens of nonprofits as well as municipal staff to enact remediation strategies on an already stretched system. For example, CAN established an emergency food distribution, distributing over 7,000 pounds of food and over $5,000 in gift cards. The city, in partnership with CAN and other partners, also set up several warming centers, including overnight warming centers, one of which was at the Northside Community Center, which is one of Ann Arbor's few resiliency hubs. With expectations that severe weather will only become more volatile, we are far from experiencing challenges to our grid in other life-saving resources. In addition to tackling climate change, we also need to ensure top levels of accountability from our utility providers, as well as explore options in which to build community resilience. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jeff Wilkerson.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor, council members. As you just heard, my name is Jeff Wilkerson. I'm the petitioner and developer for the North Maple Road Apartments project that is on tonight's new business agenda item. I'm also the founder of A2 Collaborative, a local design development firm that, along with local engineering and architectural services, played a role in the early and ongoing project design. I know that this is the first reading, for this PUD rezoning, but I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce and summarize the project and talk about some of our various features. Our team worked diligently to blend elements of sustainability, affordability, community connectivity, and also a reduced reliance on auto-related infrastructure. In fact, our design has an approximately 82% parking to unit ratio. Not only do these design features, these are important to A2 Collaborative as a firm, but we also believe that they are valued by the community and the city of Ann Arbor. Through our efforts, I believe that we have put together a project that will have a meaningful impact on addressing the lack of housing in the city, as well as producing and allowing for units that will remain forever affordable at a 60% AMI level. Our project is located on a major trunk line that has access to other parts of the city, and the project includes a clubhouse that is dedicated to bike storage and maintenance, as well as e-bike charging. The building itself will use far less energy than a traditionally designed code-built apartment complex, and we believe that this plays a role in reducing our carbon footprint and angling towards a less intensive, carbon-intensive future. Our building will be all electrified. We will offset a percentage of our energy usage through photovoltaics, and we will have a built-in level of resiliency through a geothermal design that has been incorporated into the courtyard and the parking lot. And so thank you all for your time as I introduce this project, and me and my team will be available to answer any and all questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Patricia Jackson.
Patricia Jackson, phone number ending in 194. Sorry, Patricia Jackson, phone number 518. Go ahead. Patricia Jackson, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, sorry. Yes, I'm a resident of Earhart Village since 2003, and I'm addressing the board tonight regarding the planned removal of trees and berm and against the placement of a sidewalk as proposed by the Earhart Village Road 2003 project, and requesting the City Council to reject and eliminate the construction of said sidewalk pursuant to the Earhart Village Homeowners Association Board Resolution dated 2/24/23, which has been presented to the city recently. Removal of the trees and berm modification is contradictory to the maintenance of the city's urban canopy and City of Ann Arbor Forest Management Plan. In addition, recent unusual weather events have contributed to widespread damage to other healthy trees in the Earhart Village community, Ann Arbor citywide, and the Ann Arbor citywide tree canopy. According to a 2014 health impact assessment prepared by Michigan Department of Community Health for the City of Ann Arbor Public Services Area Systems Planning Unit, a 40% tree canopy is recommended for multifamily residential areas, which now only average 21%. In addition to these public health concerns, we at Earhart Village are concerned for the general safety of the children and residential families that currently live along this berm, and the impact of removal of the berm for the safety of the children is a main concern. Thank you very much for listening to my concerns this evening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ralph Marcus.
Ralph Marcus, phone number ending in 159. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Councilman, and councilpersons. My name is Ralph Marcus, and I represent Earhart Village Association of 174 unit owners. There are members of the community either requesting to speak tonight or watching or on the call. We asked to have input in the engineering department's plans for the sidewalk that's contemplated with the Earhart 2023 reconstruction prior to those plans being consulted and submitted, and we were not allowed to have that opportunity. We have asked to be formally advised of a processing track for the plans, the preliminary plans, and quite frankly, no one from the city has responded, making this process a little unfriendly, necessitating the use of the association's lawyer at a cost to the association to gain the attention of folks in the city. And we'd rather not proceed in that fashion, but it unfortunately has come to that. We've asked someone to provide a written response to the path of the meetings and the schedule for processing and approving the project. And we've asked for those, we've submitted those questions to you all in writing. Again, we have not had any response. We've made presentations at the Transportation Commission and the Planning Commission, and some of the responses that took place during those meetings were just inaccurate or untrue statements by the folks on those commissions. And I don't blame them, but they just don't have the necessary facts in front of them. We have presented objective rationale as to why the planned sidewalk on the eastern side of Earhart Road is just another unconnected sidewalk to nowhere, probably in perpetuity. The sidewalk can't be placed, as we understand it, in front of Botsford Cemetery. You cannot move the complicated utility equipment on the north end of our property. There's a conservation easement that has a partial sidewalk, which would have to be reconstructed. And that is where the Planning Commission said, well, the sidewalk's already there. Well, part of it is, but part of it's not. And there's a restriction in that recorded conservation easement, which precludes construction on that property. Also, there's not any sidewalk apparently being contemplated between the two Pine Bray streets. So we're kind of at a loss as to why the sidewalk has become so important to the engineering department. If it was to be constructed, the sidewalk would damage critical tree root and actually remove about 7 trees and have to have root protection for a number 30 or 40. And we think that there's probably about 30 trees in total that would have to be removed. The preliminary road improvement plan that was presented by engineering shows, and I want like everyone to take note of this, on pages 21, 27, and 40, that the engineering department has this sidewalk, which is supposed to be in the right-of-way, extending into the private property of Earhart Village. I can assure you that Earhart Village has absolutely no intention of providing any authority for the sidewalk to be on its private property. And we do not want the sidewalk constructed. As was stated earlier, there are these trees that would be damaged are
Our next speaker is Lisa Reach.
Lisa Reach, phone number 841. Press star 6 to unmute your phone. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Lisa. I'm also a resident at Earhart Village, and I am opposed to the sidewalk. I don't think the city has listened to us, and I don't think our council members have represented us well. You keep referring back to 300 reviews that you had from local residents regarding this project from 2019, I believe it is, at which point the sidewalk was not even a factor, and you say nobody opposed the sidewalk. Well, nobody opposed it because it wasn't even a factor in that project. So that's a ridiculous argument on the behalf of the city. There's plenty of area in the existing roadway to put in 2 lanes of road, 2 bike lanes, and if you must have a sidewalk, put it in the existing area. You said you can't move the curb. Well, I think you can. And in the way that our governor says things, move the damn curb if you must have a sidewalk. Don't impose it on the residents of Earhart Village. Speed is also a factor here, and that was requested by the 300 reports that you got back from 2019. And I don't believe that the roundabouts will reduce the speed. So I am requesting that the speed limit be reduced to 30 miles per hour like it is on Glacier Way, as opposed to the 35 miles an hour that it is now. And I also hope that in this whole project, you address Green Hill School and our ability to exit and enter our driveways without obstruction during drop-off and pickup time. At this point, we are hostages in our own parking lots because of double parking and people picking up and dropping off people at Green Hill School that has never been addressed. I thank you for listening, and I sincerely hope that City Council listens to the residents of Earhart Village.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Larry Mendoza.
Council, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm here to talk about a golf issue that we're having. My issue pales in comparison to no energy, but it's important to me and it's important to 50 other senior golfers that play at Leslie Park. In 2009, you adopted a resolution that set rates and restrictions for season passes and green fees. Since that time, the green fees have been amended 5 times, each time by council approval. Season passes have never been brought forward for amendment. They remain as you adopted them in 2009. This year, amendments were made by staff that changed the original intention of the adopted resolution. For example, senior season passes specifically allowed weekend play for senior golfers. The commentary section specifically says, now available for use on weekends. This year, park staff changed that policy so that seniors can no longer play on the weekends. We are not allowed to play at Leslie Park on Saturday and Sunday unless we pay the daily fee or buy a full season pass, which costs $400 more or a 67% increase. Seniors are the only ones impacted with these cost increases. That is not right. The change, I believe, is not in line with the original intention that council adopted in this resolution. The second change that was made was to limit the use of a full pass. A full pass allowed users to play 7 days a week, anytime. Now Parks is saying you cannot play on weekends till after 12. You would think that's no big deal, but the resolution specifically states it's a full pass. It does not allow for restrictions. For me, the cost I estimate to play on the weekends, because I play in the mornings, will be $1,500. I will gladly pay that, but I'm going to pay that somewhere else if I have to, because I feel that passionate about the change that has been made, that it is not right. And again, the change to the full pass does not meet the original intention of the resolution that you adopted. Another change is the original resolution included monthly, senior, full, and weekday passes. Those have not been offered in the 4 years that I've been in Ann Arbor. I don't know where they went. The resolution you adopted allows them, but they've disappeared. I think they need to be reinstated and offered to the golfers as allowed by the resolution. I believe that the resolution binds the park staff to offer what was presented and approved. Staff should not be allowed to change the original intent of any resolution that you adopt. The changes currently made by parks were never presented to the public, and we hope that you do something about trying to get these back in order. So, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rita Ross.
Rita Ross, phone number ending in 963. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Rita Ross. I reside at 782 Green Hills Drive and represent Earhart Village Homes Association as its president. I want the council to be advised that Earhart Village in no manner, shape, or form proposes or provides that the city of Ann Arbor with any permission to trespass onto our private property for the construction of a contemplated and unwanted sidewalk. A properly circulated and documented petition of over 100 residents of Earhart Village has been formally submitted, along with the board resolution and narrating cover letter objecting to the subject sidewalk. We ask the clerk to accept the petition and the accompanying documents. Earhart Road needs to be repaved. It just doesn't need to have a sidewalk to nowhere built with which would be a dramatic waste of city resources and will ultimately lead to significant damage to the property of Earhart Village. Should our reasonable requests not be accommodated, as they have not been so far, we certainly are positioned with legal counsel to protect the interests of our residents. Notwithstanding, we would rather collaborate with the city for an amicable solution and invite all parties to a meeting to reconsider the existing plan. I'm most concerned about the fact that we have attended all the community meetings regarding this project beginning in April 2019 through December 2022 to express our opposition to the construction of this sidewalk. We have written to the mayor, to the city attorney, the city administrator, the public service manager, planning manager, councilperson, and others, and no one, not one person, has responded to us. We have commented during the most recent Planning and Transportation Committee meetings, and we have been left dismayed by the inaccurate responses of some of the commissioners and engineering personnel. We pay our taxes. Where is our representation? We believe the proposed sidewalk is unnecessary because the sidewalk already exists on the other side of the street, and there is no requirement in Ann Arbor for sidewalks on both sides of the street. You've already heard about the many gaps that would exist between the Pine Gray Streets in front of Botsford Cemetery and on our conservation easement. And we do not believe that the 1972 sanitary sewer easement previously granted gives the city the authority to construct on our private property. Our ISA certified arborist noted in his recent inspection that not only will an unsightly retaining wall be required due to the grade, but removing large tree roots can make our remaining trees unstable and a hazard to the homes behind them. The construction activity will stress the remaining trees, making them susceptible to insects and diseases, causing death and decline. And on top of that, the tree canopy in our neighborhood has already been severely impacted by the development of the Concord Pines subdivision, where over 1,000 trees were recently destroyed. We believe the city's plan will diminish our livable community by increasing air and noise pollution, storm.
Our next speaker is Mojan Savabiasafani.
Hello, Ann Arbor. Did you hear people who were speaking? I heard it multiple times. You people on this city council do not represent this public. You know who they represent? They represent the money that went into their campaigns and got them to sit right over here and tell us what to do and what not to do. They do not represent Ann Arbor. They represent the rich in this town who get to say what goes on and what doesn't go on because they got paid for their campaign, big, huge campaign support that they got. But that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to tell you the amount of suffering that you endured in the past few weeks because of electricity disconnection, et cetera, does not compare even in the slightest to the amount of torture, electricity-less days, the torture and murder of Palestinians that your tax dollars every year purchases. Every year, American tax dollars pays the apartheid state of Israel $4 billion. That money goes into cutting people's access to water and electricity off, torturing people on the streets, shooting young people, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the background. Last time when I was here, Ms. Ayesha Ghazi declared that she is a member of the Human Rights Commission in this town, and she has never seen this proposal, which we have been bringing here for 20 years, that we want no military aid to Israel. We are against military aid to Israel. We have been asking for this to be approved by this city council. Ms. Ghazi says that she has never seen that come to the Human Rights Commission. Well, that tells me one thing. She has no idea what goes on in Human Rights Commission. And she also it also tells me she has absolutely no care for any kind of human rights, least of all Palestinian people. And those are the reasons why she's sitting on that chair. And those are the reasons why she's sitting on Human Rights Commission, because she's clueless and she cares nothing for human rights. If she did, she would know that we did go Human Rights Commission in 2019, exactly when she said she was on that commission, and we demanded it multiple times. If she cared about human rights, she would know that the top issue of human rights communities all over the world is the Palestinian human rights. And if she cared about human rights, she would bring her own resolution to protect people of Palestine. She doesn't give a rat's ass about human rights or about the commission. She's here because she's been handpicked by powerful Zionists in this town to sit and say nothing. In fact, her ignorance and her carelessness and her heartlessness is why she's here. Ann Arbor, we need better people than that.
Our next speaker is Blaine Coleman.
Check this out. The Hamtramck City Council just approved a resolution for Palestinian rights and against military aid to repressive governments, and against occupation. And they did it in no time flat. They didn't sit on their ass for 20 years like the Ann Arbor City Council has done. They didn't run and block and tackle to protect Israel. No. They quickly opened the doors to a Palestinian human rights resolution, as you should have done 20 years ago, as you should do today. What do you think, what do you imagine it does to generations of Palestinian children, even in Ann Arbor, when they see that you are killing them with your tax dollars, when they see that you, the city council, are exercising massive, massive efforts to make damn sure that no Palestinian rights resolution will ever even be debated on this city council? What do you think it does to Palestinian children and Palestinian adults, generation after generation, when they see you do this? They know that you are racist towards them, and you are a government exercising your governmental power. You're not some schmo on the street making a comment. You are the government making damn sure that they get no protection, not even from a little Palestinian human rights resolution. What do you think that does to them? And I haven't even mentioned, what do you think it does to Palestinians in Palestine, getting mowed down by the thousands, getting murdered by the thousands with your tax dollars, and with you sitting in these chairs making damn sure that not a single Palestinian human rights resolution will ever be debated by this council? What do you think it does to Palestinians in Palestine? It's clear after 20 years that you don't give a good goddamn what happens to Palestinians in Palestine, in Ann Arbor, or anywhere. And remember, you are the government. We're talking about government action which kills Palestinians. That's racism. Racism is not a cartoon complaining about how Israel kills Palestinians. Racism is when you are killing Palestinians and you are the government. That's racism. Racism is when you have to give your child the talk because the authorities might kill him. Every black parent knows about the talk, from Massachusetts to Mississippi. Do you?
Our next speaker is Patrick Scott.
Shame on you all. Shame on you.
Patrick Scott, phone number 635. Press star 6 to unmute your phone. Go ahead.
I was calling regarding the Energy Commission resolution regarding DTE.
Yes, please continue.
The resolution powerfully and clearly states ongoing issues city residents have with DTE. It is a strong attempt at a path towards regulating a corporation that continues to act in its own best interests, not those of the residents of Ann Arbor. However, requiring DTE to attend commission meetings to report on its progress may in the end be the same as giving DTE a seat at the proverbial table and access it may use to exert its influence on the commission. What may be nearly as bad for the city and the commission is the perception that DTE has been given a seat at the table, because everyone knows that DTE's ultimate goal is not to provide power or amazing service to the people of Ann Arbor. DTE's ultimate goal, because it's a corporation, is to make as much money for its CEO and shareholders as it possibly can. We have to remember that from DTE's point of view, Ann Arbor is merely a solidly storm-proofed power line reinforced to withstand the harshest storms so that it may reliably transmit cash from city residents to DTE's CEO and shareholders. They rely on access to political power to keep that infrastructure in place. If the goal of this resolution is to create more accountability and the perception of more accountability, giving DTE access to political power or the perception of access to political power will only create the appearance or the reality that DTE has been put in an even better position to exert its influence over local energy policy. Thanks for your continued work on behalf of my family and the city of Ann Arbor. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rita Mitchell.
Rita Mitchell, phone number 194. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Rita Mitchell. I live at 621 5th Street, and I am an environmental commissioner, but I'm speaking for myself tonight. I want to encourage all households and businesses to contact the Michigan Public Service Commission because, as you're considering in the resolution DC5 tonight, electricity is an essential service, and DTE does not deserve the requested rate increase that it has made. In our house, we experienced 2 back-to-back power outages in the last 2 weeks, triggered by ice and wet snow, but actually caused by poorly maintained DTE infrastructure. DTE admits that it deferred maintenance in its 2022 year-end earnings conference call. You can find it by Googling its earnings conference call and see pages 10 and 11, on which deferred maintenance is highlighted as a feature of earnings for 2022 and is planned for 2023. We're lucky here. We were cold, but safe and concerned. We only had 80 hours without electricity over the 2 events. I witnessed firsthand a wire that dropped to the ground behind our house on Friday, March 3rd that sparked throughout the night until noon on Saturday. Firefighters assessed the situation early on, determined that it was not critical, and called DTE, but it wasn't to be a repair. A DTE safety staffer sat in a car idling at the head of a dead-end street watching the wire to be sure that people did not approach the unsafe wire. At noon on Saturday, the power was cut, and the repair of power was completed 24 hours later on Sunday. We heard about people's loss of work, expenses for spoiled food, and obtaining food that did not need to be cooked during the outage, as well as costs for hotel rooms when available, many of which were priced excessively. Please add the cost of Ann Arbor firefighter time that was not available for other fire emergencies in the city due to the need to check on the many downed hot wires, the cost of warming centers, and other emergency services in the city. Those costs add up, and they should be charged directly to DTE. We appreciate the service of all the technicians and electricians who helped return our power. We're not pleased with how DTE management appears to depend on ignoring maintenance to gain the financial return for its investors, and simultaneously ask for higher rates. In Bridge Magazine on February 10th, it reported on February 10th that DTE asked the MPSC for permission to increase its yearly revenues by $62 million, representing a 14% residential rate increase. At the same time, DTE reported a $1.1 billion gain to its investors. What the heck? Search for the MPSC on the e-docket. Once on that page, search for case number U21297. Click on Submit Comment and tell the MPSC to deny the rate increase requested by DTE and set up procedures to make DTE accountable to its customers ahead of its investors. I agree with the resolution that you're considering tonight and agree with the prior speakers that you remove the resolve clause relating to DTE as a regular participant in the Energy Commission. DTE should not influence our Energy Commission recommendations. They're extremely good at crafting influential lists, as I said, to distort actual services received.
Our first 15 speakers having spoken to us and provided their public comment within time less than the 45-minute period, we now go on with public comment overflow. Our next speaker is Daniel Roeke.
I'm a law student here at the University of Michigan. I live at State Street Village Apartments. And part of the reason why I'm here today is because I've lived in a lot of areas, but this is the first time where I'm paying as much in rent as I have been. I'm paying as much in utilities as I have ever, and the first time I've ever been without power for more than 6 days. And that's why today I want to talk about a critical issue that affects us all, power outages. Power outages are a major inconvenience, and they can have devastating consequences for businesses, hospitals, and homes. They disrupt our lives, compromise our safety, and harm our economy. But what causes these power outages? One of the main reasons is the failure of privately owned electric utilities to invest in infrastructure and modernize their power grids. Private utilities often prioritize their profits over the needs of their customers, which can lead to the neglect of the system, resulting in blackouts and brownouts. It's time to recognize that electricity is a basic human need and should be treated as a public good, not a commodity for private profit. We need a public ownership model for our electric utilities, one that puts the needs of the people first. Public ownership of electric utilities means that the community, through its elected representatives, owns and controls the electrical grid. This model ensures that the utility is run in the interest of the public and not for private gain. It also means that the public can hold those in charge accountable for their actions, something that has been severely lacking. In addition, public ownership of electrical utilities would lead to greater investment in infrastructure, making the power grid more reliable and less vulnerable to outages. It would also create jobs and economic opportunities in our communities, as local workers would be employed to maintain and upgrade the system. Some argue that public ownership of utilities would be inefficient, but the evidence suggests otherwise. Municipal utilities, which are owned by local governments, consistently outperform private utilities in terms of reliability, affordability, and customer satisfaction. In conclusion, power outages are a serious problem, and we need to take action to address them. Public ownership over electrical utilities is the solution. It will ensure that the needs of the people are put first, and that our power grid is reliable, modern, and sustainable. Let's work together to make this a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there communications today from council? Councilman Ghazi Edwin.
Thank you. I firstly want to thank all the community members who've shown up tonight and share their input and their important experiences that they faced, during recent power outages and over the last few years. I want to say that, this feedback is valuable. And later on during the meeting, I hope we're going to discuss more about how important stakeholder engagement and input, like the community members who are here tonight, can be a part of this resolution. So I want to let you all know that we are listening.
Further communication from council. Councilmember Song.
We have something on our agenda on eviction relief later on tonight, but I encourage folks to also attend the County Board of Commissioners meeting, and hopefully that will also be on their agenda on the 15th at 7 p.m., and hopefully we can encourage our partners on the county level to also support. We have a couple hundred folks who are in our eviction courts right now, and they're primarily mothers. So if you find this issue of interest here tonight and would like to continue that work on the county level, I hope to see you at that meeting on the 15th, 7 p.m. Thank you.
Further communication. Councilmember Cornell.
I wanted to thank people who took the time to communicate in advance of the city schools meeting that Councilmember Ghazi Edwin and I participated in. It was really, really valuable. We spent the time during that meeting setting our priorities for our collaborative work together. And I just wanted to report out really quickly that we sort of, understanding that there's only so many things that can be accomplished, whittled our list down to what we thought the most important priorities were for the cities and schools. And Rec and Ed after school break programming, making sure that we're meeting the needs of our communities there collaboratively was one of the absolute top priorities. Safe routes to schools, environmental sustainability within the public school system and how the city and the schools can collaborate on that, and as well as equity and inclusion. So everyone who took the time to offer feedback, we brought those voices to the table, and I'm really pleased with this agenda for the group. The other thing I wanted to mention really quickly is that everyone knows Main Street is closed right now for water main replacements. Please check out the Main Street Area Association's website. There are a number of businesses that are being affected that are participating in a program called Can You Dig It? And everything from discounts to loyalty programs and things like that, just to encourage people to come down to Main Street. So those businesses are open and are hoping to see you soon and are willing to incentivize you for that. So again, that's the Main Street Area Association website, Can You Dig It program. And then Councilmember Briggs and I are having a coffee hour on March 19th at 4 p.m., 4 to 5 p.m. at the A2AC. Thank you.
Councilmember Ackman.
Thank you. A couple of roads projects happening in the 4th Ward. One is the Scioto Church Improvement Project. People will be very excited to hear about that one because it's been on deck for a couple of years now. And that's going to start March 15th. And it goes from Greenview to Maple. You can learn more about the project and sign up for updates by visiting the project page on the city's website. On March 16th at 6 p.m., there's going to be a public forum at the Pittsfield Branch Library to share details about a planned utility and road resurfacing project on Greenview. That's a project that's planned for next year, but they're starting the planning right now, and residents will have the opportunity to provide input on safety improvements. And I guess continuing with my mobility-focused updates, I wanted to give an update regarding progress on the issue of cars parking in bike lanes, which I think a lot of us hear a lot of complaints about. I see this every time I go down Main Street. So one thing that people probably already know about is that the community standards have stepped up enforcement a lot. They're going to continue to do that, whether it's complaint-based through the number or whether they discover it while they're on patrol. They're also planning to send a letter to all the delivery companies, so like UPS, Amazon, FedEx, informing them of our bike lane ordinance and letting them know that we're actively enforcing it. Also, we are going to implement a process by which citizens can make a report to community standards with a photo with a license plate and the date, time, and location of the incident. And the city will send a warning letter to the registered owner of the vehicle that says that future infractions may result in a ticket. They're going to be working with transportation, signs and signals to get additional signage installed where there isn't any, especially protected bike lanes. And then last but not least, what I'm very excited to see on our agenda tonight is tiny street sweepers, snow plows. The purchase is going to allow us to maintain the single track bike lanes. And that has been an impediment to the installation of bollards. So very quickly, we're going to be able to put bollards where there aren't any. And I think that design is going to help with this issue a lot. I also just want to thank staff who are the ones that put together this response and plan. Thank you.
Further communication? Councilmember Dish.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I want to actually thank staff for all of their hard work during these serial power outages. That's such a terrible phrase. And also, thanks for the brush collection that's begun and to come. And I wanted to invite our Ward 1 constituents. Cynthia and I are going to have a joint coffee hour from 4:30 to 5:30 on Monday, March 27th. That will probably be at the Traverwood Library, but we will update you on that at the next council meeting and through newsletters, Twitter, and Facebook. So thank you very much.
Further communication? I would like to recommend the following nomination for your consideration to the Commission on Disability Issues. Rosanita Ratcliffe. There'll be more conversation about power outages and the like with DC 5, I guess it is, but what I'd like to do in this brief communication is to emphasize my thanks and gratitude for the response of the municipal organization. When the power goes out, that's an emergency for people and it's an emergency for the city of Ann Arbor. We focus our municipal efforts on making sure that we do absolutely everything we can to ensure the ongoing and safe provision of services during these times. And the effort has been led, of course, by the indefatigable Mr. Dohoney, but I would be remiss if I did not also identify folks in public services and fire, emergency management, OSI, communications, clerk's office, and the police department. So many members of our city staff worked long hours, difficult hours, under trying conditions to ensure the ongoing and safe provision of services to our residents, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. We now have before us the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Councilmember Ackman, second by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion of the consent agenda. Councilmember Gazian.
I'd like to pull consent agenda item 2 for discussion. So this is the resolution to. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right, we pull it and then discuss it afterwards.
Oh, I got it.
Never worries.
Thank you.
Further discussion of the consent agenda? All in favor? All opposed? The consent agenda, with the exception of CA2, is approved with 11 council members present, all vote in the affirmative, thus satisfying the 8-vote requirement with respect to CA3, CA9. CA2, a resolution to approve downtown street closures for restaurant and retail use, moved by Councilmember Ghazi Edwin, second by Councilmember Udina. Discussion, please, of CA2. Councilmember Ghazi Edwin.
Thank you. So, I'm all for the downtown street closures. I think it's in alignment with our 820 goals. It's good for our businesses. I did have some questions for our Community Service Administrator, Derek Delacourt, just about accessibility and what do people do have mobility or other disabilities or who are older adults that can no longer be dropped off right in front of a business where they're going. The conversation went really well, and we talked about potentially having designating more accessible parking spots on streets immediately adjacent to the closures. And those spots, we'd make sure that they are close to curb cuts, and we would help to really map out accessible routes for people from their cars to getting into the street closures. And I also, I want to thank DDA. I know that they have done some work around adding about 4 to 5 accessible parking spots during these street closures, and they've even created an interactive map that highlights where they are. I think it would be great if we could add these routes to those maps so that people with disabilities and others can plan ahead when they come down here and also enjoy the street closures. So that's in the works, and I just wanted to share it.
Further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? CA2 is approved. We now come to a set of public hearings. Public hearings are opportunities for members of the public to speak to council and the community about the specific subject matter of the public hearing, that is to say, the specific item on the agenda. To speak at a public hearing, you need not have signed up in advance, but your speech must relate to the specific subject matter of the public hearing, the specific item on the agenda. Speakers in all cases will have 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to the time. Our clerk will notify you when 30 seconds are remaining and when your time has expired. When your time has expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. Public hearing number 1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 55, zoning of 67.6 acres from TWP Township District and 1 RC Single-Family Dwelling District to R4A Multifamily Dwelling District, 1680 Duvarin Road, 1710 Duvarin Road, 2670 Pontiac Trail, 2672 Pontiac Trail, 2678 Pontiac Trail, and 2682 Pontiac Trail. Is there anyone who would like to speak at this public hearing? To speak at the public hearing, just mosey on up.
Good evening. My name is John Mursky. I live at 505 Burson Place. The votes that you will take tonight to approve or disapprove the Village of Ann Arbor project and its brownfield plan are both consequential and highly symbolic. You and Ann Arbor residents deserve a summary of the situation. Regarding climate action, City Council declared a climate emergency in 2019 and set the target to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. It then approved the 820 plan in 2020. The plan recognizes that greenhouse gases...
Mr. Mursky, I think you're speaking at the wrong public hearing.
Am I?
I believe you are. The Village's public hearing number 2.
Okay.
That was the, I'm sorry to interrupt, and
That's all right.
we'll
That's
reserve
fine.
your time. I do note that the address overlaps, and so perhaps...
There are three things that sort of all fit together, correct?
You know what? Forgive the interruption, and let's just roll. Continue on as you will.
That's fine.
My earnest apologies.
May I continue then? Yes. Okay,
all
great.
you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Sorry.
So, as I was saying, the 820 plan recognizes that greenhouse gases and EPA criteria pollutants created by burning fossil fuels are, in effect, atmospheric sewage with a wide range of severe impacts. Moreover, it assumes, quote, all new residential and commercial buildings are designed and built to operate without the use of natural gas. As to housing, Ann Arbor urgently needs more housing, especially affordable and workforce housing. City Council has approved 2 housing-related goals that I know of. First, in 2015, setting the goal of catalyzing 2,800 new affordable housing units by 2035, and second, in 2020, by approving the 820 plan, which in Strategy 2, Action 1, targets catalyzing 2,000 new units of residential, multifamily, or ADUs, presumably including some of the affordable housing units from the first goal. City Council has never declared a housing emergency. So where do we stand on our housing and climate goals? Since the 820 plan was approved, approximately 2,600 new housing units have been approved or are in the approval pipeline. In addition, the University of Michigan has announced it is building a 2,300-bed dormitory with a second phase planned. A lot of new housing is being created. That's great. Unfortunately, at least 30 of the 46 new housing developments announced since the approval of the 820 plan will be natural gas connected. The Village of Ann Arbor's 440 planned garden apartments in 2 phases are among them. They all represent assets which will emit atmospheric sewage for at least 20 years. These emissions will undermine the 820 plan well beyond its 2030 target. You know that all electric developments are financially and technically feasible. You've approved several of them. The village development could be all electric, energy efficient, and have low utility costs. DTE has publicly stated it can provide the required electric grid infrastructure. My former employer, Bosch, in response to an inquiry that I made a week ago, stated in writing that it is thousands of air source heat pumps in stock. And finally, we know from an analysis of over 260 developments in Pennsylvania, presented to the Energy Commission and provided to the Planning Commission, that super energy efficient passive house certified, may I continue?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. That super energy efficient passive house certified multifamily projects with low utility costs are being built at or below the cost of code compliant ones. There is no reason to approve the village project tonight. Moreover, it makes no sense to provide $31 million in brownfield incentives when the project does not include any affordable housing units and it will be heated with natural gas. Do not approve this project in its current form. No one would approve new developments which discharge liquid sewage. Why approve this one? A short delay on this project is worth the short-term impact on new housing availability. Thank you very much. And I'd just like to say, most of you know me from the work I do in the energy and climate space, as well as environmental space. I also probably spend at least 20 hours a week working on housing and placemaking related activities. Housing is very important to me.
Thank you.
But we can do both.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at this public hearing?
Good evening, City Council. My name is Jeff Hayner. I live in Ward 1. Most of you know me. I've met most of you, not all of you. I'm going to speak to all 3 of these public hearings tonight because it is that important, as the previous speaker pointed out. But this first one's all about zoning. And this zoning, this R4C that this is being requested for, is as bad as the R1 that it came in as when it was annexed in from the township. And I think it needs to be made clear to everybody, the public and the council, that this developer has no right to this zoning request. It's a request, and we definitely have the right to say no to something like this, especially if it's not what we're looking for. And as the previous speaker made quite clear, it certainly isn't what we're looking for. The concerns that I've heard in the community that, well, if we don't give them this, they'll do a by right R1C, I think that that's an unsubstantiated consideration, this council has made so many efforts, substantial efforts to do away with R1 zoning, that I would hope that you would defend against R1 zoning going on this site. This needs something better. This needs a new zoning designation that we should have put in place when we redid our master plan, which is now called the Comprehensive Land Use Plan, thankfully. And we should have redone that plan 2018, 2019. For various reasons, it got delayed and we didn't. Saying no to this zoning request is an opportunity to reconsider and correct the past's vision, our vision of the past that's reflected in a tired and inappropriate zoning designations. What is left in our master plan, our comprehensive land use plan, is just been rehashed and rehashed over and over. And it's not what we need. It's not what we needed 20 years ago even, but we're going to let that go. So I think it's very important that we say no when a bad project comes before us, and give ourselves the opportunity to correct errors we may have made in the past, or just right the ship of state as new information comes to light. I'd like to see a better zoning designation for R4E and the E for environmental. Now, there's so many things that are wrong with this. If you read the staff report on just the zoning, how it's going to destroy the already terrible intersections around it, how it's going to add to traffic, how it's going to be a big carbon waste because we don't have the proper zoning in place. The thing that's shocking to me about this is this represents more than a quarter of the area of our downtown, and it is twice the size of the original University of Michigan campus. And to think that that would go unplanned or planned by a developer who's just going to shoehorn something in that doesn't even belong in a cornfield, Northfield, no offense, into our fine community, really essentially 80 acres here because they own the other adjacent parcels. It's a tragedy, and this is an opportunity to set that straight and rethink this project. And I think you should really give it some thought. It's important to the community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Ken Garber, 28 Haverhill Court. I respectfully disagree with Mr. Hayner. I think the R4A zoning, which I think is what's on the table, is entirely appropriate for this site. We want higher density multifamily housing where possible, but not at the expense of our 820 plan. As Mr. Mursky said, the plan explicitly calls for no natural gas connections in new construction, and it assumes all electric net zero energy buildings starting in 2022. The village's 320 apartments will generate, by my estimate, 2,064 metric tons a year of CO2 equivalent emissions just from burning gas. Gasoline savings from converting commuters to village residents will offset only about 1/5 of the damage. One benefit of high-density development is fewer emissions, but gas furnaces completely defeat the purpose. As architect Jan Culbertson said at the recent CCL OSI Forum on Housing, Transportation, and Climate, quote, "We cannot invest in legacy carbon emissions," end quote. Please think about what we're doing. The climate does not care about solar panel contracts, climate millages, or carbon neutrality target dates. The climate only cares about one thing: the raw physics, the molecules of CO2 and other greenhouse gases we're putting in the atmosphere. That's it. And in that respect, we as a city are failing. Last month, I think you got the report that I put together on new developments, and the 30 gas burning projects that Mr. Mursky referred to, when complete, will generate about 24,000 metric ton CO2 equivalent emissions from gas combustion alone. This is more than quadruple the estimated 5,700 metric tons of annual emissions that will be prevented through the combination of solarized installations, the pending Solar at City Facilities contract, and the Homeland Solar Parks contract. Reduced commuter traffic will only offset about 1/7 of these emissions. So we're not just violating 820, we're wiping out these renewable energy gains and putting the city's emission reduction targets out of reach. It doesn't have to be this way. You heard a little earlier from Jeff Wilkerson on the North Maple PUD project he has on the agenda for later tonight. 79 apartments, all electric, 90 kilowatts rooftop solar, geothermal, battery storage, wall and roof insulation superior to the village. Affordable housing with 15% of units at 60% AMI. This project is everything the village is not. It can and is being done here and lots of other places.
Thank you. Just come on up.
Hello, good evening. Tim Lochran, Robertson Brothers Homes, good to see you. I think some of you didn't see me speak in front of you before. 6905 Telegraph Road, I'm representing the development team. It's been a long road to tonight. There's been a lot of discourse with neighbors, with staff, with public bodies over the course of the last 3 years. We're not the first to look at the property. In fact, we even have dropped it once ourselves. It's a very difficult property. There's a reason why there's 67 acres of land in the heart of Ann Arbor. It's a landfill, and there's a lot of there's about 1.9 million cubic yards of rubble and fill. So we have a lot that we're dealing with on the site. Again, that's why it's sat there for so long. I just want to give a few highlights. I'm not going to give obviously a whole presentation, but we really did see this as a village concept. We wanted to look at multiple price points, and I think we've done that. We've got home sizes from 684 square feet to 1,850 square feet, both rental and for sale. It does meet the surrounding zoning districts. It also meets the the specific density in the future land use plan of Ann Arbor. We're not asking for a PUD. We're asking for a straight zoning of R4A. And again, that meets the surrounding districts. We'll have multiple open space areas. We'll provide public connections between Olson Park and Leslie Park. Right now, there's really only one private entrance into Leslie Park. This would open that up for the public. We'll have about 65% open space and significant wetland preservation. It's a walkable project, over a mile of pedestrian bike paths, or sidewalks and bike paths. These are all open to the public. It's an appropriate mix of residential land use. It's within a targeted growth location. If you look on your master plan, it specifically calls for growth in this area. And we will have family-oriented plans. So again, we'll have that kind of mix of housing. It's a reclamation of a former landfill property. It's a very difficult property to work with. Lots of green energy initiatives. A portion of it will be all electric. That's the for sale portion of it. Significant portion of the property. And we'll include energy efficient appliances. We'll have solar panels on the clubhouse. We'll also have solar street lights throughout. We'll have a contribution of about $1.2 million to the Duvarn and Pontiac Trail road improvements, and over $300,000 in park improvements as well. High quality owner-occupied homes, amenitized apartment homes. We are venturing with a very capable and reputable partner in DTN Management. Shameless self-promotion, but we've been around a long time. I think we have a very good reputation. That's something that's very important to us. And I think it's important to the city to know you have somebody that'll stand by the project. So we're here to answer any questions throughout.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in House who would like to speak at this public hearing? Ms. Boudry, is there anyone online who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Mayor, I don't have any callers with their hands up at this time. Oh, I have one. Caller, the phone number 115, press *6 to unmute your phone. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, this is Janet Palmer. I'm a co-owner at Earhart Village, and I wanted to speak to the concern over the city plans for the road and for the berm, which would go alongside on the east side of Earhart Road. I'm calling in support of the many comments that have already been shared, and I wanted to add.
that's a public hearing sort of comment. This this is a public hearing. Public hearing must relate exclusively to the subject matter of the public hearing. That is the rezoning of the Duvarn Road area and the villages generally.
Caller with the phone number ending in 678, do you have a comment on this public hearing? Phone number
Hi
ending in-
there. My name. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hi, my name is April Wincott, and I am a resident at Montana Way and Pontiac Trail, and I'm calling in reference to PH-1. I'm also the president of the North Sky East Homeowners Association and live, as I said, right on Pontiac Trail. I'd like the previous builder to know exactly what it is like as they are building down a couple of blocks from my current residence. The traffic, the noise, and everything has increased. I find it a bit hard to believe that there was going to be additional development without an infrastructure change to Pontiac Trail. The noise level itself has increased, especially to near 23 and M14, from 50 to 60 decibels to 70 to 80 decibels during peak time. The Pontiac Trail itself has become a drag racing strip from Polson going north past Duvarn. If you'd like to come out here during hospital shift change, you would be very interested in seeing the cars and hearing their engines open as they make their way down Pontiac Trail. In terms of wildlife, unfortunately already we have forced them into small areas and then we kill them. Much like the inclusive city that Ann Arbor is, we have already killed deer and skunk and raccoon, possum, just about every animal that you can think of within this area of Montana Way and Pontiac Trail is already been affected. So I really urge the City Council to reconsider the amendment of the zoning ordinance, please. And thank you very much. I really appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Adam Juskevich, do you have a comment?
Hi, this is Adam Duskevich in the 4th Ward. I'm just calling in to say I think you should approve this. I think the density is appropriate, and I think if we don't have developments like this within the city, we will end up with far less dense developments much further out in the townships. These people will have to commute into Ann Arbor. If we have them in the city, they'll be able to get to their jobs using public transportation rather than personal cars. And I think we should encourage as much people to live within the city limits of Ann Arbor as possible rather than moving out into the townships and commuting in. I do think that electrification is, I'm kind of conflicted about this whole issue. I think the issue with transportation is a bigger issue, but electrification is great if it can work out. So I would encourage us to move in that direction, but I haven't run the numbers for this development clearly. So as far as the density, I do think it's appropriate in this area, and I encourage you to approve the zoning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 464, do you have a comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, yes, this is Linda Verauer. I'm at 421 3rd Street. I want to encourage all council members to really follow the advice of John Mursky and Ken Garber. I am not an energy expert like they are, but I trust what they're saying. We are very lucky we've got experts like them in the community to give you advice. I'm not an energy expert, but I get the concept. We should not be locking ourselves into gas in new construction, period. It's just insane. And it flies in the face of the A20 plan that you all approved and supposedly we're so proud of. I know it's difficult, but I'm sure that there are ways you can incentivize developers better. As both, I think one or both of those speakers mentioned, there are examples here in Ann Arbor of less prominent developers who have made it work. Like Viridian, for one example, and that's not the only example, that one on Maple Road, there's many examples. We can incentivize developers somehow. We can find a legal means to incentivize them and to prevent them from building new construction with gas hookups. Please honor our 820 plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caller with the name Lengao, do you have a comment?
Hi, this is Alex Lowe calling from Ward 3. I didn't go to an engineering school quite as prominent as the University of Michigan, but when I was in engineering school, I did still learn that everything in engineering is about trade-offs. And what I'm seeing here tonight is a lot of people talking about the perfect and not what the trade-offs are. And I'd like to get us talking about what the actual trade-offs are. The trade-offs that we're seeing here are either we can provide this this housing all within the city limits, where the city will get tax revenue from it, where we will be able to provide public transportation and bike networks and walkability, and yeah, maybe we'll have to have more gas around for a while. Or the alternative is where we can let those same people who aren't just going to magically disappear buy or rent their housing out in the townships, where the city won't get the tax revenue, where they have much laxer laws on things like gas appliances and stuff, and where they're going to be pushed far more to drive more, which honestly is a bigger deal for pollution in the city. So would I like to have an all-electric development there? Absolutely, I would love it. I really, really would. But I don't want to push it if it means that we just aren't going to wind up with anything. And the history of that site shows that if we push too hard, we're not going to wind up with anything there yet again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Luis Vasquez, do you have a comment?
Yes, greetings Ann Arbor City Council. Luis Vasquez, resident of Upper Lower Town, and located very close to where the village is being proposed to be built. I wanted to call tonight to speak in favor of the rezoning of this parcel of land. I think it's appropriate, highly appropriate, to densify at least parts of this area of the city. within the city limits. And also just to say that I'm glad that one of the representatives of the developer is there to hear about the environmental concerns that are being expressed. I'm sure Robertson builds, decent housing, and we have a great need for that. But if you guys could incorporate more electrification into your projects, especially in the city of Ann Arbor, the more the better. We do need to get away from the use of methane and other greenhouse gases, methane being one of the more potent. But thank you for being there and hearing our concerns. And once again, I'm in favor of this zoning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Goodman, do you have a comment?
Yeah, hi. So at least one of the previous speakers mentioned that the city hosted a housing and climate change forum a couple of weeks ago. And I think the biggest thing I took away from that session is dense multifamily housing in cities is one of the best tools that we have to combat climate change, because multifamily buildings are more efficient and because enabling folks to live near their jobs and have a variety of transportation options is much better than the alternative. But I also heard something else in that forum, which is that we need to be really careful about placing severe restrictions on developments in the city unless we can do so in cooperation with the rest of our region. If Ann Arbor decides to require 100% electrified developments, but our neighbors in Scioto Township and Pittsfield Township and so on don't do any such thing, then what is the net result of that going to be? It could backfire on us. So we need to consider what the alternative scenario really is when we're making a choice like this. And so I heard Mr. Mirsky saying that we can do both. We can have successful 100% electrified developments without rendering them infeasible. And I want to believe that. It would be great if that's true, but I'm not sure I do believe that's true in every case on every single site. And I certainly remember some previous instances with, somewhat different context. We weren't talking about energy, but we have seen cases in the past where prior councils demanded too much of developers. The developers walked away, and we got much worse by right projects instead. Or we might get nothing here, and we'd only ramp up demand for sprawl out in the townships, as I was saying before. So I just urge you all to be careful here, not to make perfect the enemy of the good. This is certainly not a perfect project, but I think it's a net positive for Ann Arbor even so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I don't have any other callers on the line with their hands up.
See no one? This public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 2, resolution to approve the Village of Ann Arbor Site Plan and Development Agreement at 1680 Devarin Road. Is there anyone who'd like to speak at this public hearing?
Over again. I have a technical question about this site plan. To me, it appears to be illegal under R4A zoning. That's because the front setback along Duverin Road exceeds the 40-foot maximum front setback requirement. The developer needed the space to meet the 65% open space requirement under R4A. Planning Commission approval was conditional on the petitioner obtaining a variance from the setback requirement. To my knowledge, that variance has not been granted. So this plan, as it stands, looks illegal to me. Now, the developer recently annexed some properties that will allow it to meet the open space requirement and fix the setback problem. But we have not seen that plan. The plan before us tonight has too big a front setback on Duverin as I read it. But you should ask your staff. I'm not an expert on zoning. Before voting, I suggest that you settle this question. Small point. Your meeting agenda is incorrect when it says the Planning Commission voted 9-0 to recommend approval. The actual vote was 8-1, with Commissioner Ellie Abrams voting no. Many other commissioners were highly critical of this project. A few moments ago, Mr. Loughran described the positive features of this project, which they do exist. The 164 single-family homes that will be all electric, the streetlights that will be powered by solar, the solar clubhouse, the roundabout. Until today, I had given the developer full credit for these positive amenities and climate-friendly ones as well. Then I read the brownfield plan. It turns out, if you look at page 16 of the plan, Mr. Loughran and his colleagues at Robertson Brothers are asking us, the public, to pay the incremental cost of the full electrification of the 164 for-sale homes, the electric streetlights, the solar streetlights, the solar clubhouse.
Mr. Garber, can I ask you to refer to the brownfield plan during the brownfield plan public hearing?
Of course. I will address, there is much to say about the brownfield plan that I was going to address at the public hearing. This is relevant to the site plan.
Please.
I think. Because the developers claim that they're footing the cost, or implication that they're footing the cost for these positive elements is not correct. Or they're not footing the incremental cost anyway. They're asking the taxpayer to do it. I think that's relevant to the site plan. Yes, I mean, the heat pumps in the for-sale homes, $1.32 million. The solar elements, $789,000. The roundabout, $1.2 million. All that's going to be paid through the tax increment financing by us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at this public hearing?
Thanks again. Tim Lockman with Robertson Homes. Just quickly, there was a topic about being illegal in the R4A. We do need a variance. We were scheduled twice for it, and Mother Nature didn't let us come down here. They canceled both ZBA hearings. We're scheduled for, I think, the 22nd of this month, and there is a condition on the zoning ordinance that hopefully you'll pass tonight. That includes the need to have a variance from the ZBA. So fully, we're not trying to pull any fast ones here by any means. He's obviously spoke to the brownfield. I can wait till the next public hearing if
Please
that's
do.
appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello once again. I want to start by acknowledging that, this, as I said many times, I think I said a couple years ago when we were seated as a new body, that I think we have to acknowledge that this land doesn't belong to us in the first place, and so the idea that it's going to be insured for profit is really offensive to me. I spent the last 26 years within a mile of that site, living within a mile of that site, and the last 3 years within a literal stone's throw of it, working on some community garden projects up there. And so it's a special parcel, and it's a shame that 76% of the existing trees on it and 60% of the landmark trees on it are going to be, it's a clear cut like everything else we do around here. There's nothing special about this project. And before I get into the specific site plan things, I think we need to face up to the fact that no matter what we do, the townships are going to develop, and they're going to develop in the way that they want to do. And yeah, we haven't reached out and we haven't done a proper partnership with the townships, and we haven't done proper planning in a regional way. But that's neither here nor there. We don't build it here. They're still building in the townships because I get dozens and dozens of contracts lined up all through next year to repaint the builder's paint in these beautiful houses they're building out there, and also apartments and townhouses. We need housing. We need housing everywhere. I don't think that's a surprise. The whole planet does. But not all housing is alike, and the city of Ann Arbor has prioritized its housing. This site doesn't have, the site has, it's typical. It's actually, I had some friends from other communities who follow council as closely as I do, and they wanted me to come up here and say this is an insult to this city and the residents, this project, no offense to the developers. This site has no net zero housing. The site has no low-income housing. It has no affordable housing. The site has no senior housing. It has no ADA accessible housing. It has no cooperative housing, no live-work housing, no group housing. We deserve better. This site plan is, I think the most offensive thing to some of my former constituents and my friends and neighbors at Arrowwood is the way that this is packed and clustered next to Arrowwood, that the large apartment units are massed right up against the Arrowwood facility. But there's no notion of connecting those communities or creating cooperative communities. It's just a way to stuff the houses on this property. And the folks who say that perfect shouldn't get in the way of the good should recall that in many instances, we have said no to the not perfect and gotten better. And the finest example of that I can recall, at least in my time on council, is the Lockwood development, where we said no to a Lockwood on an inappropriate site on the west side, and we got a much larger and better project on the south side. And so it doesn't hurt to say no to a bad idea.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the House who would like to speak at this public hearing? Ms. Boudry?
Mayor, I don't have any callers on the line with their hands up.
Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 3, resolution to approve the Village of Ann Arbor 1680 Duvarin Road redevelopment brownfield plan. Is there anyone who'd like to speak at this public hearing?
John Mursky, 505 Burson Place. Just a few brief comments. Just to clarify, there are a lot of good elements of this project. There are elements that could be better. This is definitely not the perfect being the enemy of the good. It is absolutely clear from engineering calculations that benefits from reduced commutes and reduced vehicle miles traveled are substantially less than the negative impact from this development burning natural gas. This development could go forward with some slight improvements, as I've suggested earlier. This is not a matter of canceling the project, not doing the project. This is a matter of improving on the project. It can be done. It is being done all over the place. It is being done in this city, and it can be done with this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Ken Garber again. Brownfield
My apologies, thank you.
discussion. No, you're absolutely right. I did touch on the brownfield, but I thought it was relevant to the site plan. I will speak to the brownfield specifically. As you know, state law allows local governments to reimburse private developers for cleaning up contaminated sites using tax increment financing. This is completely at the city's discretion. The village parcel has an old landfill that's emitting some methane. Under this brownfield plan, the landfill stays, but the developer puts in some specialized building foundations, passive venting systems, and a methane interceptor trench. It's asking for $31 million over 13 to 18 years. The $26 million to protect the residents from contaminants is necessary. Agree with that. But they're also asking for $5 million for non-environmental, non-remediation activities. Now here's the thing. The city's brownfield policy requires that if such non-environmental activities are in the plan, the developer must provide affordable housing, 15% of units at 60% AMI. But there is no affordable housing here. Instead, the developer is substituting sustainability elements and a new roundabout for that affordable housing. So your task tonight is to decide whether that trade-off is worth it. To me, it's not. Totally unacceptable. First of all, because this project is very unsustainable. It's not addressing climate change, it's contributing to it. Yes, we've heard about the solar on this that powers the streetlights, that's on the clubhouse, and the heat pumps in the for sale units. But as I told you in the previous hearing, it turns out that we're being asked to pay the incremental costs of all those elements and the roundabout. So the way I see it, they want us to pay for those environmental and traffic improvements, and yet they're saying we want to substitute those improvements for the affordable housing standard in the city brownfield policy. So they pay nothing, we reimburse everything, and they get to bypass the affordable housing requirement, as I see it. I mean, I wish I were wrong, and maybe I am, and I'm sure the developer will address this. Their view, I suspect, is that because the city did not require any of this stuff, the city should pay for it, not them. So you have to decide whether you buy that. Here's what I think we should do. Offer the developer 3 options. Option 1, add the affordable housing that city policy requires. Option 2, remove the $5 million request for non-environmental activities. Or option 3, do full electrification. Remember, the city has total discretion. We can set any condition we want. If they don't agree, then just take out the $5 million.
Thank you.
All right, one more time. I actually served on the Brownfield Board of Review when I was on council, and it's a pretty interesting thing. And it's at least as interesting as the insurance board, which I heard you're going to get rid of tonight. I don't know who's going to oversee that fund. I'm a little concerned about that. And because I also hear you're considering getting rid of Brownfield Board of Review. So I encourage you to read the Brownfield report and the conditions that have not yet been met for this to be approved, because there's several. You should not say yes to this until those conditions are in writing. As another caller and as the report points out, it's not really a cleanup. It's basically some advanced radon systems are going in these houses, some special foundations and some trenches and things like that. $31 million. So the polluter, multiple polluters, including the University of Michigan, who uses for landfill for decades, skate, and we pay for the supposed cleanup by foregoing tax revenue. And that's not right. The state gives us the authority to do this, but it doesn't require us to do this. It doesn't require us to subsidize any of this. And from an investment perspective of the city, it's a terrible idea to take, I know this is how it's supposed to function, but it's a terrible idea to give the developer a dodge for the first period of that loan, that tax payment, when we should have that money in our bank earning interest for the eventual support of this infrastructure that they're putting in. But that's the way that's going to go down. So it doesn't have the MEDC support it needs. It doesn't have the TIPS capture agreement and start date in place, and it doesn't have the duration of that written in the agreement. Those are non-starters. This should not be approved. Now, I think that we need to set aside, the council needs to set aside personal interest for the public interest on this matter. It's a big chunk of change we're giving out. I know that a lot of development happens in this community simply because council wanted property tax to play with. And that's fine. At some point, this will be developed, and it will be developed properly in a way that supports the sustainable commitment that we have made to this planet, supposedly. This isn't it. And this so-called cleanup could come back and bite us in the future when everybody's sucking methane out of their basements, just like they're sucking dioxin. We should not be paying for polluter cleanups. Ann Arbor is a gem in this city, in this state. I think everybody knows that, and in this country. And we let it just turn to garbage. We've been well below what we should be requiring our developers to get this kind of money. And it's happened at Lower Town, and it's going to happen here. I hope it doesn't happen here. Don't let it happen here. Reject this plan.
Thank you.
Tim Lochran again. Someone had mentioned trees. We are planting 1,600 trees as part of the development, so certainly above and beyond what would be taken out. In regard to brownfield, so we're not asking for any upfront revolving loan fund. Everything that's being paid is paid up front. We're talking over $20 million in just environmental costs, including, that's on our dime, that's up front. There would be no money if this project didn't go forward. In order to pay the $20 million environmental costs, obviously that's a huge impact to the development. That's why this has sat there for so long. We're not asking for, the additional costs above that. It's not a PUD. We're not asking for a PUD, which would have some of those public benefits. We're providing those. Yes, we're asking for some of those back in the brownfield, but again, these are upfront costs out of our pocket that aren't, it's not something yet you can require of us. We're offering these in conjunction with the development. The plan was vetted by the Council Brownfield Subcommittee. It was a unanimous vote. That was in January. Listen, there's unique challenges to the site, obviously. It needs help. It will not develop without a brownfield. I don't care what anybody tells you, this site will never develop without a brownfield. What we're providing is something that I think the city has over 3 years and the neighbors have. City staff, boards, council, like you, recognize that there's a positive to this project. There's a positive to the economy. There's a positive to the environment, and that requires a brownfield to develop this. So if it was a clean site, we wouldn't ask for a dime. This is not a clean site. There's a lot of challenges. So we're happy to go through the brownfield. We've got our experts from SME that can go through any of the details you're looking for. But again, this site needs a brownfield, and I don't think anybody can argue that. So thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Evening, I'm Brett Stuntz. I'm with SME. As Mr. Lockwood mentioned, we're the environmental consultant on the plan. A couple of technical pieces associated with the brownfield plan. This site was dumped on in the 40s and 50s, and then the portion where the redevelopment is being built was used as a construction borrow pit and is filled with unsuitable soils that you can build on up to 30 feet down into the ground. And the brownfield statute in Michigan is really an economic development statute with an environmental focus. This site has had economic development challenges that have prevented its redevelopment. The environmental challenges are interwoven with the soils challenges, the geotechnical challenges, all of the things of the brownfield statute across the state has been an effective tool for promoting redevelopment. And so as part of the brownfield process, which is typical throughout Michigan, the focus is on due care, which means that it's redeveloped in a way that's safe for use. So people aren't exposed to unsafe environmental conditions. And we looked at we've been assessing the site for over 3 years. We looked at what are the costs associated with actually cleaning the site up. That would be something close to $100 million to get rid of all the material there. It's simply not realistic. But what is proven out at other sites throughout the state and throughout the country are redevelopments using engineering controls to provide a safe environment for reuse. And so there is no way other than specialized foundations. There is no way other than venting systems, vapor mitigation systems. And those will allow the site to be reused in a safe way and have areas accessible to the public in a safe way, and in ways that control the issues, primarily methane, associated with the dumping that was done in the past.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in House who would like to speak at this public hearing? Ms. Boudry?
Alex Lowe, do you have a comment?
Hi, thank you. This is Alex Lowe calling in from Ward 3. I really do hate the fact that we have to spend the money on a brownfield like this. And perhaps if the university announces a time machine so that we can go back in time and prevent the site from ever being polluted in the first place, we wouldn't have to worry about that. So I get on it, U of M, I guess. But in the meantime, we have to live with where we are right now. From 1940 to 1970, the population of Ann Arbor was increasing at a linear rate of roughly 2,340 people per year. If that had continued from 1970, when the population was around 100,000 people, to today, we would have about 225,000 Ann Arborites living within city limits. So this is a drop in the bucket of what we need, and if we need to provide that sort of brownfield for it, that's what we have to do. It's not a decision that we really have much to do over. We can either choose to clean it up, or we can choose to leave it a polluted mess for the next generation to deal with. It's unfortunate that previous generations chose to leave it a polluted mess for us today, but they were doing what they thought was best, and now we have to do what we think is best. And what I think is best is for us to clean it up, not leave it for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number 464. Go ahead.
Hi, Linda Brower again for 21 3rd Street. I know this is the Brownfield hearing and I am leading up to that, but I do want to say that I believe what Mr. Mursky said addresses the concerns expressed by a couple previous speakers, specifically Mr. Vasquez and Mr. Jeskovitz. I believe Mr. Mursky, with his expertise, has calculated that the climate benefits reaped by the reduction in commuting into the city does not outweigh the benefits, the greater benefits, or the greater detriments that will be caused by the gas hookups for new construction. So I hope we can dispense with that argument. No, and then furthermore, nobody is arguing this shouldn't be a dense development. I haven't heard that tonight, and I don't feel that way. In fact, at one point, I think there was a dream that this could be a very dense new Arrowwood 2. I was hoping for that. Apparently, that's not going to be able to happen. Okay? Brownfield, I don't think anybody's arguing that it's not going to take Brownfield TIF to be able to develop this site. The question is how that Brownfield is structured, and I would encourage the council members to look very carefully at how this one is structured by the developer and pay attention to what at least 3 speakers have told you about in terms of how it's structured and how it perhaps doesn't give the benefits that we need. And I would just encourage you to just do your due diligence, and I think you can get a little bit better out of how this proposal is. I think you should hold off on it. And now that I hear that they want you to approve it contingent on approval of the variance, boy, you should really delay it, please, tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mayor, I don't have any other callers with their hands up at this time.
Seeing no one, this public comment is closed. We have before us the regular session meeting minutes of February 21, 2023. May I have a motion, please, to approve these minutes? Moved by Councilmember Watson, seconded by Councilmember Medina. Discussion, please, of A1. All in favor? Opposed? The minutes are approved. B1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 55 zoning of 7.6 acres from TWP Township District and R1C Single Family Dwelling District to R4A Multifamily Dwelling District, 160 Duvarin Road, 1710 Duvarin Road, 2670 Pontiac Trail, 2672 Pontiac Trail, 2678 Pontiac Trail, and 2682 Pontiac Trail. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Harrison. Discussion, please, of B1. Councilmember Dish.
Thank you. As you are already aware, we will be speaking to this project 3 times tonight on our agenda. This first time we vote on the rezoning, so I will not go far into the project's details. This project, as you have heard, reclaims a former landfill site that has gone neglected and undeveloped for decades. It will create 484 units of housing with a second phase to come. This will be a mix of owner-occupied townhomes and apartment rentals at multiple price points. The developer has agreed to make the 164 single-family townhouse-style homes fully electric after a productive series of discussions with the Office of Sustainability and Innovation, planning staff, and the Planning Commission. In other words, the project didn't come in that way. The developer agreed to provide that amenity. The garden-style apartments will rely on gas heating. We've heard from many of you that since council is rezoning this project, we should make full electrification a condition of that rezoning. Rezoning, unless we are rezoning to a PUD, is not an opportunity for council to extract unlimited public goods. Our zoning decisions as a city must be consistent. We have been zoning projects near this location without requiring full electrification. We have no basis in law to do so. That is the only question. It is not whether full electrification is feasible or whether the supply chain for heat pumps exists. It is whether we have a basis in law or not to require full electrification. This is something that I want, but imposing it project by project on some projects but not others is neither a fair nor an effective way to get it. It must be established in code and law as a universal requirement and expectation for every developer who wants to build in Ann Arbor in the near future. The questions before us is whether the proposed R4A zoning is consistent with adjacent zoning surrounding land uses and with the land use element of the city's comprehensive plans. The answers to these questions are yes. This does not mean that we hold our nose and vote for this project. Even without full electrification, there are other sustainability benefits to this project, foremost among them being that it reclaims a former landfill site that has gone undeveloped for decades and remediates it to the point where it is safe to house people there. The housing that it will provide may turn some commuters into residents. It will certainly provide rental housing at lower than downtown prices, which is something the city sorely needs and is working very hard to encourage with TC1 zoning elsewhere in the city. It will also bring infrastructure improvements to Pontiac Trail. It will not degrade Pontiac Trail. It is one of the only mechanisms we have to bring needed infrastructure improvements by the contribution that this developer will make to funding an urgently needed roundabout at Pontiac and Duvarin. I supported the project on Planning Commission, and I support it here.
Further discussion? For my part, I support the rezoning for the reasons identified by Councilmember Dish. We do have a wide variety of interests in the city to accomplish. We have thousands of folks who work in Ann Arbor and don't have the ability to live in Ann Arbor. Their presence in the city provides, of course, tax benefits. Their presence in the city provides sustainability benefits, but I think it's also important to note that their presence in the city will provide incredibly important community benefits. We improve when we have more folks who live here. Ann Arbor is, I think, a community that is welcoming and looking for everyone. Supply and demand in our city is, it's not a joke when it comes to our housing crisis. Our affordability situation results from more people wanting to live here than have the opportunity to do so. We do have a supply problem. This zoning will enable us to make an incremental improvement in that area, and so I'm going to be in support of it. Councilmember Briggs.
Yeah, thanks. I also am in support of this. I think Councilmember Dish spoke very eloquently about all of the elements of, what we needed to look at in terms of rezoning and also some of the benefits of the site plan itself. for myself, as much, we'll discuss the site plan later, and obviously this site is particularly difficult in terms of, and that's why there's the brownfield plan associated with it. But in general, I mean, our responsibility is to think about this zoning in terms of what's the surrounding land use and what does the comprehensive land use plan suggest. And when I do that, this rezoning, that's the only way I'm going to look at this rezoning. Is that appropriate or not? I think there are members of the community who are asking for community benefits that would only be obtainable through a PUD, and if the only things that potentially as community benefits, and that would require for us to think about rezoning only to PUD within the city of Ann Arbor, which does at this point in time, which seems a little bit of an unreasonable request and fundamentally illegal. So, I'm supportive of this rezoning tonight.
Further discussion? Councilor Ackman.
I think I'll just add that I'm supporting this too for the reasons that have already been mentioned. But I also did want to say that, I'm hearing, our community wants us to go all electric in new developments. I want that. It can be done. We know it can be done. People are doing it. So this for me is not about buying into an argument that it's not feasible or possible. It is. This is a question about zoning. The zoning to me is appropriate for the area. The addition of 484 units of housing of multiple types is a net community benefit, and so that's why I'll be supporting it.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. C1, an ordinance to amend sections 2.1, 2.2, 2.5, and 2.9 of Chapter 26, Solid Waste of Title 2, Solid Waste of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Redina. Discussion, please, of C1. Councilmember Dish.
I just wanted to say a couple words about what this amendment will do. Under the city's prior franchise agreement for commercial refuse hauling with waste management, the city billed its own commercial location customers and paid the franchise hauler. And the city also mediated customer service issues. We heard, or rather the city heard from stakeholders, commercial customers, that they would really rather work directly with their service provider. And in particular, commercial customers indicated that the new contract should provide them access after hours and on weekends to make to call attention to issues with refuse collection. And the new contract will do that. So this amendment, in other words, is a response to commercial consumers' concerns, and it offers added efficiency and convenience for both the city and its customers while keeping responsibility for oversight over building and customer service with the city.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. C2, an ordinance to amend Chapter 55 zoning, rezoning of 3.13 acres from TWP Township District and R1B single family to PUD planned unit development, North Maple Apartments rezoning 1815, 1855, and 1875 North Maple and 1921 Calvin Street. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Redina. Discussion, please, of C2. Councilmember Dish.
I'm sorry, there's just a lot of planning on the agenda tonight, so you're going to hear from me a lot. It is rare to see projects that hit all of the city's major priority initiatives, and this one does. Sustainability, affordability, and greater density where there is infrastructure to support it. This project is also a PUD, and the units that it will provide are considerably smaller than those that will be provided by the other project that we have on the agenda. We are asked to rezone from township to PUD, which means that we need to be attentive to the public benefits and to comparisons to the nearest existing zoning district. So this will be an all-electric development, and that's a major public benefit. This may be achieved, they are exploring it, by geothermal and heat pumps. Solar panels and batteries will offset 15% of the annual energy use of this project. To ensure effectiveness of the panels, this project will be insulated well in excess of our building code requirements. They will have operable triple pane windows, which is a benefit. And the developer has made provisions to collect composting in their solid waste enclosure should that service become available for multifamily dwellings. This project proposes the project proposes 79 units. It will be 25.24 dwelling units per acre, which seems like a silly number to give you, but I say it because it's very slightly above the maximum for the proximate zoning district, R4D, which is 25 an acre. So it's not a hyper-dense project, nor is it an extraordinarily tall project. The maximum height of R4D is 120 feet, and this project will be 55 feet or 5 stories, roughly. The project maximizes bike parking at 1 bike parking space per unit and minimizes car parking. That's something we like to see. 15% of the units will be permanently affordable. That amounts to 12 actual units. And the project also closes a sidewalk gap on the west side of Maple Road between M14 and the Maple Cove development, and it adds a protected pedestrian crosswalk with a rectangular rapid flashing beacon that will span North Maple Road, which is a significant pedestrian amenity. It will connect the Garden Homes Park to the site, and that crosswalk will also serve a new covered AATA bus stop provided by the developer. I could say some words about natural features, but I think you're getting tired, so I'm going to hope that we will all support this project.
Further discussion? Councilmember Cornell.
I just wanted to add really quickly that we've heard from constituents who are in favor of this project. I will be supporting it because of the public amenities that are coming with it and the infrastructure improvement to that area of town. So having received that feedback from people who are directly impacted and will benefit from it, I think is important to hear and take into consideration.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. C3, an ordinance to amend Chapter 11, Risk Fund, and repeal Section 1193 of Chapter 8, Organization of Boards and Commissions of Title I of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor. Moved by Councilmember Ackman, second by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion, please, of C3. Councilmember Ackman, my apologies.
Sorry, I have a couple of questions if staff is available to answer them.
Mr. Wilhelm is here to help answer any questions.
Good evening, Tim Wilhelm from the City Attorney's Office.
Thank you. So one question that I had as we look at changing the structure of how we do this is, will we still have an appeals process, and what would it look like?
Yes, the idea and motivation behind this amendment is to eliminate the Board of Insurance Administration, or Insurance Board, and reflect the true administrative nature of these functions. So there are more than one function. So there is benefits administration, acquiring or purchasing and placing insurance for the city and all of its exposures, as well as the risk management and claims review process. The claims review process is what seems to present the most unusual posture for council members being on that board. So there is no procedure for the claims review process within the ordinance currently, but we intend to, with this ordinance amendment, continue to have the operation and function occur as it does, just without the council members. So it would be staff with the city administrator as, or his designee as a decision maker, with a supporting cast of staff, which are public works often, other city staff from the finance department, consultants, which are our insurance brokers, as well as the city attorney's office, that review all of the claims, provide discussion, and reach a decision on each claim. And there would be, on those decisions, there is a current appeal process the same process or availability of an appeal would continue. We will be clarifying who that would be. Right now, an appeal is heard by the same insurance board. We would prefer to have, without the council members involved, a decision maker, and then identify a separate and different person that would hear appeals and put fresh eyes on any claim that was denied and somebody wants to appeal or present new evidence or whatever that circumstance may be.
Thank you.
Councilor Ackman, you still have the floor.
That's okay.
For the Councilor Song.
I appreciate that clarification. I serve on this commission, and it's one of my favorite commissions. It's productive and is an area where constituents can come and make claims against the city, quite frankly, right? And Mr. William, can you explain the role of our insurance provider in this, so that it's and what they play, what kind of role they play in reviewing claims outside of what attorneys and staff might present?
You're referring to our insurance broker?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so we have two components to this, really. We have a consultant, Highland, who assists us in placing insurance, and they help us with various insurance-related questions. We also have Highland Administrative Services, which serves as a third-party administrator. So they have assigned a person to the city's claims process, and they conduct the factual investigation of each claim when it is filed. In addition, we also have finance department staff and the city attorney's office that receive these claims, and we will often make contact with Public Works to go out and look at a particular location, make sure if there's a remedy that needs to be taken immediately, that it's taken care of. But the HAS, our third-party administrator, does that factual investigation, provides a summary for the insurance board that it can consider when it evaluates each claim.
So for folks who are unaware of this board, we get claims from everything from sewer damage to, there was a $90 million claim a couple of years ago. So there's a variety of issues that come forward to this board, but the staff have been really good about weighing, the lines of where we're responsible and how, and then directing folks to resources when available, where available. I'm in support of this resolution. And I thank staff for your continuing work. One last question, if I may. The reporting mechanism. So besides where we are in litigation, can you review how you currently report out what happens on this board?
So there is a current reporting where the insurance board minutes are reported to the council and attached as part of the agenda. We have a meeting of the insurance board every month. Shortly thereafter, those minutes will be attached as part of the submission to council along with other reports. The information in that is fairly rudimentary because there is a significant legal exposure to most of these claims. And because of that, a lot of it is attorney-client privilege, and we want to make sure that we are handling those claims appropriately from that perspective. But in addition, the function of that process is to identify claims where there's clear liability and pay them so that we don't have to go to litigation.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Oh, sorry, Councilor Ryer. My apologies.
Thank you. Mr. Wilhelm, I was hoping you could just speak a little bit, because I think that you researched this, speak a little bit about how we are unique in how we have had this set up for a long time.
Yes. City of Ann Arbor, with its insurance board and council members on that board.
Council members on that board, yeah.
Is very unusual. So I did do some benchmark type survey just for my own purposes to understand just how unusual that is. And I was unable to find any community within Michigan or any of our peer type cities, such as college cities outside of Michigan, that have any public-facing indication that there are elected officials involved in that claims review and decision-making process. And I think that is reflective of the administrative nature of certainly this claims review, but all of the insurance and benefits components are largely handled by staff and consultants. I see where maybe the council members, there was a desire to have them involved. I'm not sure it's the best way to go forward with that particular function.
Yeah. It always struck me as an odd role for a council member. And, just for the potential to, I think everyone here at this table, I would trust with being in that role, but, there could come a time, and maybe there has been a time in the past when, decisions are made more on a political basis rather than, than one that's informed by the matters at hand. That's always a possibility when you have elected officials involved in something. So I'm really, I'm fine with this change. I did want to note just simply that I spoke with the city administrator about this and about daylighting information to the extent that we can about claims. Perhaps it can find a place on our new city website. And he indicated that that's something that he'd be willing to look into so that the public can very easily see what claims have been settled, generally what they related to, and we can all check in on it anytime we wish.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Dohoney?
I have had the opportunity subsequent to my conversation with Councilmember Iyer to check in with the people doing the website, and we can in fact do that.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Mr. Wilhelm, thank you. It is approved. DC1, resolution to appoint Brooks Curtis to the Environmental Commission, moved by Councilmember Dish, second by Councilmember Ackman. Discussion, please, of DC1. All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DC2, resolution to approve the closing of Monroe and Tappan Streets for the annual Monroe Street Fair, Saturday, April 1, 2023, moved by Councilmember Cornell, second by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion, please, of DC2. All in favor? Councilmember Briggs, you want me to pretend I didn't say that?
I do.
All right. Councilmember Briggs.
So I was absent from the last meeting. My understanding from our agenda response questions is that we've come to some sort of better understanding, some agreement of sorts. I just thought that that might be able to be discussed.
Mr. Dohoney, is there a staff member who can briefly articulate the happy result?
Mayor, I doubt it because we didn't have any staff introductions, but I can just say that in the intervening 2 weeks, since it was last before council, we did have a staff team negotiation with the proprietors of Monroe Street. There were certain conditions that were negotiated out to ensure access of emergency apparatus and personnel should we have a need to do that. In order to make that palatable, there's going to be some parking restrictions and lanes that must remain open. And we agreed to take a 1 year, let's see if it works. If it does, then maybe we have a path forward. If it doesn't, then we did try. So it's a conditional approval for 1 year.
Thank you. Councilor Briggs? Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DC3, resolution to approve contract amendment number 10 to the service contract with Recycle Ann Arbor for municipal resource recovery services for an extension of 1 3-year and 4-month period with annual increases for inflation every July 1st, limited to the percentage change in the consumer price index CPI for the previous contract year or 6%, whichever is less. Estimated cost of $4,534,303 for 3 years and 4 months of the contract. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Medina. Discussion, please, of DC3. Councilmember Cornell.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Under the Council Ethics Rule 4, I need to be asked, I'm requesting to be excused from this vote. Council Ethics Rules 4 prohibits any situation with conflicting fiduciary duties. My conflict is that I am the board of the Ecology Center, which has the power to approve the contract on behalf of Recycle Ann Arbor, creating a conflict with city council action.
We have a motion, please, to recuse Councilmember Cornell for that purpose. Moved by Councilmember Ackman and seconded by Councilmember Medina. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. You may stand aside. No, really. You got to leave. Yeah. Haven't you, exercising your influence in any other way?
Osmotically.
Further discussion. Councilmember Dish.
As evident from the title of the resolution, this will extend the city's contract with RAA for collecting recycling from multifamily dwellings for a period of just over 3 years. I'm very grateful that city staff and RAA could come together on this agreement, and very, very pleased that RAA will continue to perform this service, which it has been doing from the very beginning. The City of Ann Arbor is very lucky to have its recycling collection services provided by a mission-driven recycler. We are among just 4 cities in the country where this is the case. And what it means is that RAA doesn't just collect our bottles and cans, it serves our A20 goals by finding the very best markets for our recyclables and putting our materials to their highest and best use. So thank you, everyone who worked on this.
Further discussion, Councilmember Medina.
Thanks. I won't add much more than Councilmember Dish, but just wanted to echo thanks to all of the staff, both here at the city and at Recycle Ann Arbor for working on this. I know that there have been a number of conversations back and forth to get to this agreement here tonight, and so I look forward to supporting it and hope that we can get to a place where we have kind of longer term agreements in the future, so that I know that we can instill some confidence in investment and things like that in the future for improvement.
Further discussion? Councilmember Ackman.
I think everything that Councilmember Dish said, except I would just like to add, I had the opportunity to learn a lot more about Recycle Ann Arbor this past week than I ever knew before, and I don't think I had a full appreciation for just what kind of organization they are and what they do. Councilmember Dish outlined those specifics very eloquently, so I don't think I need to add to it. I just want to say how happy I am to support this contract and to work with such an organization.
Further discussion? For my part, to continue the thanks parade, I do wish to thank Recycle Ann Arbor for working hard on this agreement, and want to thank staff very much for working hard on this agreement to make sure that we are able to continue to receive the benefit of Recycle Ann Arbor services at an appropriate rate. I'm incredibly excited about the work that Recycle Ann Arbor has done, and will continue to do on behalf of the community. I know that it is something that we here on council and that the municipal organization cares about, and that the community cares about. We want to ensure that we have recycling provided as best we can, and I know that that we are blessed to have a partner in Recycle Ann Arbor. They have provided services for years, and I'm glad that they will continue to do so. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. Councilmember Cornell, if you can hear me, please come back. DC4, resolution approving the reallocation of fiscal year 23 new human services partnership funding balance to eviction protection. Moved by Councilmember Song, seconded by Councilmember Watson. Discussion, please, of DC4.
I'm really pleased. Oh,
Councilmember.
no?
No. Who's raising? See, Councilmember Song, then Harrison.
Okay. I think we were going to like arm wrestle. Thank you. I'm really, really pleased to see this resolution come forward. We are in the midst of an eviction crisis. Our courts are filled with families on the brink of eviction, and this is a countywide issue, but something that I think Ann Arbor can really speak to as one of the major funders to what was coordinated funding and now new human service partnership. So this is something that I'd like to thank staff for, working really, really closely with the County Office of Economic Development in a really quick fashion. I think we actually have staff here to do an introduction. Is that correct? No? They weren't? Okay.
Mr. Delacourt is on Zoom.
So if Mr. Delacourt's available, I think he can give us a little bit more detail on how this resolution came forward and the work that we're doing with the county.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Sorry, I lost the question in transition there. Yeah, this resolution that's in front of you was really spearheaded by the county and our partnership with them, the Office of Community and Economic Development. It was brought to our attention not too long ago that there was, and I believe it was discussed briefly, a real need for some additional funding for eviction protection in the court systems. Working with the county and our staff, our finance staff, the Ann Arbor Housing Commission, we were able to identify that there was about $305,000 in unspent funds from this year that were set aside for the year one high impact grant fundings under the new human service partnership. Due to some timing, COVID issues and others, that money was going to go unspent this year. We identified the ability to move that funding to the Housing Commission and allow them to partner with OCED, potentially some of their other partners, to distribute that those funds to those who need it most quickly. That is the resolution you have in front of you. It is designed to distribute the funds immediately to the Housing Commission to let them do the work they do and to partner with the county to do that as well. So that is what we're designed to do. And then there will be a grant agreement that'll come to council at a later date that'll specify the reporting requirements for how that money was spent. And we can take a look and see if it was done in a manner that we think is appropriate and if it should be repeated going forward.
So with my remaining time, can I propose an amendment to the resolution?
Sure.
I've sent the language to Ms. Boudry. If she can send that out, and I'll just go ahead and read it.
Please.
Now therefore be it resolved that City Council directs the city administrator to immediately distribute the funds to the Ann Arbor Housing Commission, allowing coordination with Washington County Office of Community and Economic Development and their other partner organizations to distribute the funds in the most effective manner possible, and that subsequent to the distribution, the AAHC and the city will enter into a grant agreement detailing the reporting mechanism for how the funds were distributed.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Dish.
Yeah, so that was basically just repeating what Derek said, but
Thank you.
in a new clause.
Just by way of quick question, Mr. Delacourt, did you hear that amendment?
I did.
Is that consistent, and just to confirm, that's consistent with staff expectation?
Yes, it's perfect.
Is that friendly to the body? Perfect. Councilmember Harrison.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to speak a little bit about the homelessness here in Washtenaw County. The homeless crisis disproportionately affects people of color in Washtenaw County. There's approximately 60% of those experiencing homelessness that identify as Black or African American, versus only 12% of Black or African American individuals that are in the county here of Washtenaw. An eviction can appear on a renter's credit history for up to 7 years, hindering their search for safe, affordable housing due to a ripple effect of negative consequences. But beyond displacement, the impact of an eviction can also cut a renter off from access to quality public transportation, getting them to school and work. The stress of the process and the upheaval of an abrupt move can also affect tenants' mental health. Where here in Washtenaw County, individuals experiencing homelessness with a mental illness have gone from approximately 50% to now over 80%. And with substance abuse skyrocketing somewhere near over 300%. Studies have shown that evictions play an important role in the lives of low-income renter households and may also contribute to poverty through cascading disruptive effects such as job losses, adverse health effects, and negative consequences for children. In addition, if you become homeless after an eviction, you're also more likely to have encounters with law enforcement, and once released, individuals are more likely to end up in a perpetual cycle of homelessness and law enforcement encounters. So I just want to say thank you to staff for putting this together, working really quickly on this, and very, very happy that this is happening. Thank you.
Councilmember Watson.
As a liaison to Housing and Human Services Advisory Board and the Human Services Partnership Leadership Team, I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of this resolution, which is in direct response to the family homelessness crisis in our city and county. As of December 2022, the number of families experiencing homelessness has increased by 20% from the prior year. Most of these families have never entered the system and are at lower levels of need, which likely illustrates that more people are experiencing crises related to current economic conditions, rising rents, and food prices. 76% of the families experiencing homelessness are Black, female-led households. This is absolutely a racial equity issue. Due to market conditions and larger average family size, it's become more expensive to house families and harder to find available units within the housing stock. This is why we want to prevent eviction where we can, and why we're allocating the money to the Ann Arbor Housing Commission. While this funding is welcome, the need is great, and we need more resources from our state and federal partners, especially as COVID relief funds expire. Thank you to Mrs. Hall, Mr. Delacourt, Administrator Dahoney, and to our partners at the county, including Ms. Boydston and County Administrator Dill, for the work you did to direct the money to the homelessness crisis.
Further discussion? Councilmember Redina.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank the sponsors for bringing this and for staff for all of their work to identify this and direct it towards a clear need in the community. I also just wanted to take a brief moment to thank all of the real outpouring of support that we saw from many of the social safety net organizations and leaders in the community who organized to make sure that they were emphasizing their support for this as well. I know that they're incredibly involved in and interested in where we are delegating these new human service partnership funds, and to see the outpouring of support because they recognize the tremendous need in the community was also really appreciated. And so I just want to thank them for reaching out and lending their voices of support.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DC5, resolution requesting the city administrator to engage with the Michigan Legislature and Michigan Public Service Commission to advance energy, equity, and resilience. Moved by Councilmember Gaziano and seconded by Councilmember Watson. Discussion, please, of DC5. Councilmember Gaziano.
Thank you. So, I just want to say that I knew when preparing this resolution with my colleagues that there were going to be people who felt that this wasn't going far enough. But I believe that us not saying anything tonight was not an option. Too many of our constituents have recently faced life-threatening emergencies due to prolonged outages. This resolution is about energy justice and asks the Michigan Legislature, Michigan Public Service Commission, and our, and our city to work to improve regulation, accountability, and transparency of DTE, and for our city to continue to create equity-focused emergency response plans that prioritize vulnerable residents. I want to thank Dr. Missy Stultz for contributing to this resolution from a climate perspective, Mr. John Fournier for sharing information on the state's role in this issue, our legal team, and Jennifer Hall for sharing information on how DTE impacts our affordable housing developments. I want to thank my colleagues, Councilmember Cynthia Harrison and Lynn Song, for helping this resolution to center equity and focus on communities that have been historically disenfranchised from environmental and energy justice. I also want to thank our city staff and emergency responders for working around the clock during the last 2 weeks of the recent weather events to keep our community safe. What drove myself and my colleagues to write this resolution is that during the last 12 days, since the first ice storm on February 22nd hit, we have heard from so many constituents whose lives have just been upended. I heard from a neighbor who lost power on February 22nd, and their power was up for 6 days, but due to caring for an ailing family member, they were unable to leave and forced to stay in their home while their thermostat hovered at 40 degrees. My Ward 3 colleague and I heard from a resident on Friday whose 89-year-old next-door neighbor had been without power for 9 days, with another winter storm on the way that evening. The elderly neighbor was lucky enough to be able to stay with a family member, but not everyone has that luxury. And I know that we've all heard from folks like this all over the city, but I want to remind us that these are just the people that have the privilege to contact us. I worry about the many who are struggling just to stay alive and didn't have the opportunity to reach out for help. And we know that people who are most marginalized are disproportionately impacted when outages occur. Personally, I will never forget in 2019 when my own father-in-law, who was in hospice care at home, had to be hospitalized, not because his health took a turn for the worse, but because the power had gone out for 5 days, and he was stuck in a hospital bed without access to necessary medical equipment. He needed to stay alive. It was traumatizing for him, and it was traumatizing for all of us. I believe that access to reliable electricity, especially in our climate and with climate change upon us, is a basic human right. And without it, people struggle to maintain employment and to stay alive. Our city has had numerous outages over the last 3 years that have lasted more than 3 days. And every time this occurs, we all end up being impacted, and we all pay for it.
Councilmember?
Am I over my 3 minutes?
You are, I'm afraid.
It's okay. I'll just end with saying I think it's important, and I welcome feedback, and we have to keep DTE accountable.
Further discussion? Councilor Song.
Earlier this afternoon here in Ann Arbor, the Ford School gave an award to Senator Stephanie Chang for her work in environmental justice. And Representative Rashida Tlaib was here, as well as Dr. Abdullah Sayed. And I was really heartened to see how we have leaders of color leading this conversation on environmental justice and also speaking to energy justice. And it seems like appropriate on this same day, just a couple hours, actually more than a couple hours later than 4:30 at the Ford School to speak to this and DTE's role in providing a service that I think we think of as an essential utility like water and clean air. So, I thank Councilmember Aisha Ghazi Edwin in leading this effort and speaking directly to so many constituents who normally do not reach out to us, who do not know who we are. And I wish it wasn't for these reasons where they're in crisis, they were put in crisis. And we advocate as best as we can by contacting DTE's regional manager, lobbyists, and trying to expedite a service request, but that is not sustainable. So this statement, those statements behind this resolution, I think, are not surprising, timely, appropriate, and in line with what I hope is already happening on the state legislature level.
Further discussion? Councilor Ackman.
I wanted to thank the sponsors of this resolution for bringing it forward. As many of our public speakers said today, this is not a new issue. In fact, it's something that I talked a lot about on Doors this summer because my ward experiences frequent sustained outages. It's not okay. And I think the lack of accountability to the utility company, in this case DTE, is something that has been really striking over the last couple of weeks. So this is timely work. I really support the spirit of it, the details such as, the accountability, oversight of DTE, the focus on energy equity and justice, supporting the resilience of Ann Arbor to these severe weather events. These are all really, really important. Several people brought up in the comments, as well as emails that I think that we got today, about some concern about what the engagement looks like with Energy Commission. And, I guess I would argue that they're spending, tons of money on propaganda through advertising. And I guess I would suggest that maybe engagement with our commission is a space in which they wouldn't be allowed to propagate propaganda. It's not an advertising venue. It's a space where they actually have to be accountable and listen to people and be responsive. But I think I would like Energy Commission's input on how this engagement should look.
Councilmember Briggs.
Yeah, I wanted to thank the sponsors for bringing this forward. It's obviously very timely and critical. I'm proud that the city of Ann Arbor has based our climate work, is rooted in equity. Our climate action plan has that as a leading principle, not as an afterthought. It was central to what we promised the voters when we put forward the millage. But there is a lot of work that needs to be done at the state level and a lot of accountability that is required, both from action from the legislature and from the Michigan Public Services Commission. So lots of wonderful points in here. And as a liaison to the Energy Commission, I think we've got a number of, I would love to have them have an opportunity to take a look at this resolution, provide some additional input so that when we are, I would presume, unanimously supporting this at some point, we just make sure that we have all of our ideas in it moving forward. So I would like to move to refer it to Energy Commission. We're meeting soon, so we should be able to have it back for a vote by the next meeting.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Ghazi Edwin. Discussion of the referral. Councilmember Ghazi Edwin.
I agree. I definitely think that it's important to consider, the opinions of various stakeholders, including the community members that were here tonight, right? That's why we have these commissions, and I totally agree. So I agree with the motion, and I do hope that we get it back in a timely manner. I think residents want us to act. And we want to too.
Further discussion? Councilmember Ryer.
Thank you. Can we request that they make their give their feedback by our next meeting? Is that too much to ask? Okay, because I can support referral tonight. I was ready to move forward with this if that was sort of the will of the body as well. But I can support referral as long as we're not losing a lot of time with it. This is, I think, an opportunity right now with everybody in Michigan really has their eyes on DTE and consumers, the legislature, the state regulators, and even a month from now, we're going to be a long way from this ice storm, and people will lose interest, unfortunately, until the next big outage comes around, which we know will happen. So I guess we're only speaking on the referral, so
right. Is there
that's it.
Councilmember Medina.
I just to help alleviate that a little bit, actually, the chair of our Energy Commission is still in the room, but we have spoken with him, and I think if we were to make this referral tonight, I got the indication from him that he would bump things from the next agenda if he needed to make time for it so that we would have it back in time for our next meeting. And I also, while I have the floor, I guess I would also say I think I support the referral as well. I think another important piece is just because there is so much energy work happening across the city, I think this is an opportunity also for our energy commissioners to see some of the points in the resolution and make sure that we're also reflecting that in some of our other work as well and centering equity work in all of the work that we're doing throughout the Energy Commission. And so with that, I just want to echo thanks to the sponsors, my ward colleague, Commissioner Ghazi Edwin, but also Commissioners Harrison and Song for their work to make sure that equity is really centered in this conversation as we move forward. And I would also just reiterate, I think, the need for us to continue to hold DTE's feet to the fire on this. And I think that is a sentiment shared by the Energy Commission and would likely be some feedback that we get back. Thanks.
Further discussion? Councilmember Song.
I was also ready to vote on this tonight. I feel like there was a lot of time and energy, some amazing Herculean efforts in the midst of our own outages that folks on council were struggling with, as well as down trees. And I respect that work a lot. I respect the work and the approach to this work, which I feel is a real testament to Councilmember Aisha Ghazi Edwin's experience as a community organizer, as someone who sees how these issues directly impacts our vulnerable community members. So if we can maintain that sense of equity in this review, in this committee review, then I will be in support of voting for the referral. But when it comes back, I hope that the substance of the resolution remains intact. Thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor of the referral, please say aye. Opposed? It is referred. DD1, resolution to approve the Village of Ann Arbor Site Plan and Development Agreement at 1680 Duvarin Road. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Watson. Discussion, please, of DB1. Councilmember Dish.
Yeah, I think we've heard a lot of the features of the project, so I want to just emphasize a couple of things that are important, and that is, again, the apartments will be, both, as a matter of fact, both the townhomes and the apartments will hit multiple price points. The apartment units will range from 700 square foot one-bedroom units to 1,500 square foot three-bedroom units. If you've looked for housing in Ann Arbor, you know that it is really important to have size options. These units will be designed they will not be designed in a way that specifically targets students. This is not to say that students are not welcome to live in them, but that unlike some of the housing that we are seeing downtown, it is not developed as student housing. So that means that it's more flexible offerings, which is really important, and important for us to get that outside of downtown. Excuse me. So there will be 32 electric vehicle charging spaces, Energy Star rated appliances throughout the development. And as the developer said, they are using a community concept, which means that though you will have people who own their homes and people who rent their homes and all kinds of people living in this development, everyone will have access to all of the amenities, including the clubhouse and the pool. And there will be some very good wetland restorations by removing invasives from wetlands on the property, and the developer will be making a contribution of over $300,000 to the park fund. So just a few things that are in the site plan. We need to talk about the brownfield plan the next time we talk about this development in a few minutes.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DB2, resolution to approve the Village of Ann Arbor, 1680 Duvarin Road, redevelopment brownfield plan. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion, please, of DB2. Councilmember
That
Dish.
came up even faster than I thought. I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand. As the staff report makes clear, it is correct that because a component of brownfield TIF funding is dedicated to non-environmental uses for this project, the developer would normally be required to provide a 15% affordable housing component or payment in lieu. Now, it is within the discretion of council to refuse to waive this requirement, which was waived by the Brownfield Committee. Council should do that if council judges that this proposal does not offer enough benefits to justify the waiver. I believe the facts and benefits of the project justify a waiver. And I want to respectfully disagree with the statement that the public is paying for the public benefits, because here's how brownfield TIF works. We have currently a blighted site that gives us zero tax revenue, and the developer is upfront paying close to $30 million to remediate, to remediate the site. I was going to say remediate and develop, and that's not correct. To remediate the site, and about 1/6 of that amount is going to go for the public benefits that I'll speak about in a couple seconds. What will happen is that in a fixed term of years, which is fixed at 18 but projected to end after 15 and to begin in 2025, for a fixed term of years, we will not see increased tax revenue from this site. We are getting zero now. We will get zero for 15 years while the developer is reimbursed for the upfront costs of the environmental remediation, which makes the project developable. I think we will get some tax revenue. I see you guys maybe. So yeah, so you can, no, I guess you can't speak. So there will be some tax revenue that we will get. And staff, Mr. Delacourt, help afterwards, please, because I just messed up a little. So that's, I just wanted to correct, because I think that wasn't an entirely fair statement. But the thing that I want to say is that this is not a patronage city, and it's very rare that we in Ward 1 get to approve something that is of real benefit for our constituents. And this project, though it has not caused all of the traffic problems on Pontiac Trail, is kind of the last project to the table in terms of North Pontiac. And so these developers were willing to put out an additional amount of money to supplement what the city will be getting through a grant application that it will make to install an urgently needed roundabout at Duvarin and Pontiac Road. This has been a project on the city's capital improvement plan. It hasn't been funded. There are no funds for it. Without the developer's help, we would need to come up with over $1 million, either from the general fund or I'm not sure where else, because mostly everything else is committed. And I'm really, I would not, this is a good project. This is good for our constituents.
Further discussion of the brownfield? Councilmember Briggs.
Yeah, I was hoping that staff or perhaps somebody from the Brownfield Committee might want to just talk a little bit more about the non-environmental sort of aspects of this plan.
Mr. Mahoney, is there a staff member here able to speak to?
I don't know if Mr. Delacourt's still on the line or not.
Mr. Delacourt, do we have the pleasure? Ms. Boudry?
Mr. Leonard is here.
You don't wish to cast aspersions. We're delighted to have Mr. Leonard.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, as indicated, I think Councilmember Dish did provide a good overview of the city. Just as a reminder, the City Council has adopted a brownfield policy that staff uses as a guide to consider projects and frame them and ultimately present them to you. It is a policy so that it is at your judgment whether or not to warrant that. As it relates to the non-environmental costs for this particular brownfield plan, components of that are site preparation, some relating to the geotechnical, some of that is part of the environmental, proposed support of some stormwater measures on the site, and measure of the roundabout, a contribution towards the roundabout improvements in the future at Pontiac and Duvarin. The bulk of the plan is environmental, but non-environmental activities are presented both by the petitioner and in the document.
Councilor Rigg, you still have the floor.
So I guess for clarification, the electrification components of this project are not included as a component of the non-environmental?
Not directly. There are They are not a eligible activity. The city is as part of that. That is part of the pro forma analysis that goes into the analysis of the financial analysis of this, and ultimately the petitioner's ask is, I'm sure, is built into that. But in short, part of the offset of that cost is the city's support, potential support of other activities on the site, such as the roundabout, such as stormwater measures and other activities.
So, and I know you just said this, I just want to confirm, brownfield could not be used as a method for incentivizing electrification of this project.
No, the city is still limited by Act 381 and the types of eligible activities that it can be used for. To date, while there's some conversation happening at the state level about affordable housing more specifically, currently those electrification and or affordable housing are not directly supported costs to date.
Okay. Do I have time for another question?
I'm afraid you don't.
Okay.
But you do have
I'll wait in
a second speaking period. Further discussion? Councilor Dish.
I wanted to ask Mr. Leonard to clarify the tax situation on the brownfield TIF.
Yeah, there is a base tax value for some of these properties. Even though they are vacant, there are some value assessed to it. So while I think your characterization is not accurate in that it's going from 0 to taxable, but it is accurate in that it's a significant tax increase. That increase in taxes at peak complete development is probably in the range of about $63 million in new tax revenue from the current level, which is about $700,000. That's taxable value.
Councilor Briggs.
And I know we have a whole plan in front of us, which, but if you wouldn't mind summarizing sort of the need for the brownfield funds in terms of the cleanup that's happening here, or the mitigation perhaps that's happening. And there's been a characterization that, we wouldn't really be able to develop this without use of brownfield, and if you could speak a little bit to that, that'd be helpful.
I would concur with the statements that it is unlikely to impossible that this site would be developed without brownfield assistance. This is a very challenging site. All the reasons that have been articulated. Not only does the site face challenges from the environmental perspective of its former use, both environmental related and just geotechnical, that is soil stability. It's a very challenging site to develop on. I agree. That is why the site has remained vacant for some time. In short, I think that it is likely impossible that the site would not be developed with some sort of brownfield assistance.
Further discussion?
Thank you.
For my part, I'm excited to support the brownfield element, as I am excited to support the zoning and the site plan before it. Ann Arbor needs more Ann Arborites. This is a site that has been vacant for years because of its environmental contamination, being on top of a landfill, and would not be able to be developed, and the community would not thereby have the benefit of more residents, but for passage of the brownfield plan. And so I'm looking forward to supporting it today. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? She's already had her two. It's approved. Ms. Kaur, do we have a closed session today?
Yes, Mayor, I'm requesting a closed session under MCL 15.268H for discussion of a privileged and confidential memorandum that was given to council on March 3rd, 2023.
May I have a motion, please, to go into closed session on that basis? Moved by Councilmember Medina, seconded by Councilmember Watson. Roll call vote, please, starting with somebody. Roll call vote, please, starting with Councilmember Ackman.
Yes.
Councilmember Ackman?
Yes.
Councilmember Briggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Cornell?
Yes.
Councilmember Dish?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Song?
Stepped out.
Absent. Councilmember Watson?
Yes.
Councilmember Medina?
Yes.
Councilmember Ghazi Edwin?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Iyer?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We're in closed session. Let's meet upstairs if we can in 7 minutes. So people, we're going upstairs. It's been revised. Yeah. Medina, second by Councilor Dish. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The agenda is open. We have a motion to amend the agenda. Moved by Councilor Medina, second by Councilor Dish. I suppose you have to actually amend the agenda. For the purpose of?
I move to amend the agenda for the purpose of, should I read the title? Adding a resolution authorizing the city attorney to take legal action to enforce the city's 2006 settlement agreement with Gelman Sciences, Inc.
Seconded by Councilor Ghazi Edwin. Distributed. I was enthralled with what I was saying, but not quite able to hear it. I had Councilman Cornell and Ackman, discussion of the clerk's report. All in favor? Opposed? The clerk's report is approved. We have the pleasure of communications from our city attorney today.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Alas. There is no public comment overage, and so may I have a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councilor Dish, seconded by Councilman Ghazi Edwin. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.